Welcome to this episode of SteeleWatching, Season 2, Episode 10, Steele Threads.
Yay!
I'm Eric. Yay! I'm Eric, and you are
not God, Eric. Who am I? No, I am not. Am I?
Not this week, no.
Okay, I'm Sara.
We're
Sara.
back.
Yes. Okay.
Halloween is over. Okay, by the time they hear this, it's probably past
it's
Christmas.
Long over.
But
yeah.
Anyway. Yes, buying ourselves some time and some stupidity in public. Anyway, yes, season 2, episode 10, Steele Threads.
Season 10.
Yes.
Oh man, that would have been great. As long as there were no tuna boat marriages and Tony Roselli, yes. I would have been on board for a season 10, like Stargate.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, a few things about this episode. First of all, according to Judith Moose's book, Steele Loved After All These Years.
You said it right. Good job.
Thank you, Judith. This episode was originally titled, and this is a head scratcher, Made in Bulgaria.
Wait, what?
Yes. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't get it.
But okay, I have a couple of questions, and I know you can't answer them, but I just have to put them out into the void. One,
sure.
The word steel doesn't appear anywhere in that. And two,
no.
Bulgaria? I mean,
yeah. There's nothing in the episode that has anything to do with Bulgaria.
No, there isn't. And I could even buy it if they were stretching into something like made in Taiwan or a place that normally makes like mass-produced clothing or items, but Bulgaria does not spring to mind when I think of that.
No, you know which one comes to mind when I hear that title? The one with, what's his name? Big heavyset kid with the fish eggs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shoot. I can't remember his name, but yes, that one would make some sense.
Some sense, yeah.
Some more sense than this makes.
Yeah. My only thought is that this episode, as we get it, was so far evolved and removed from what it was originally that...
Yeah, it had to have been.
Maybe the title originally did make some sense, but what we got, no, it doesn't make any sense.
That is so
Okay, you said
weird.
You had a couple questions. So that was one of
them.
No,
those were the two. Those were the two. Those were just like one. What? And before we get into the episode 2, I wanted to say one other thing. And again, this will be long after when this airs. People, we will anyway. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but Robert Butler passed away.
Yes,
and he was one of the show's founding sort of creative geniuses, creative minds, whatever you want to call it. Has been involved with a lot of TV shows over the years, and so yeah, just a thing to note that it's sad that he passed away, and he gave us so much entertainment. So thank you, Robert.
Yes. Bye-bye, Bob. One other thing about this episode. No Mildred.
Mildred. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's funny because I was making my notes ahead of time for the next one because I don't know if you know this, but I'm having refractive lens exchange surgery on my eye. So I'm going to need
She's getting robo eyes.
Bionic eyes or something. And it's funny because I did this episode and I did Steele Eligible, the notes for that as well. And she's in like 2 scenes in Steele Eligible as well. So we go 2 episodes with hardly any Mildred. And it was felt. I have to say it was felt. Like when I was doing the notes for Steele Eligible, I actually had to stop. I was 3/4 of the way through the episode and I thought, wait, was Mildred in this one? And then I remembered she's in the dinner scene and she's in the scene with with Laura, sorry, but she's not in any other scenes. And then I thought back to Steele Threads and I'm like, wait a minute. She's not in that one either at all. Like we get no Mildred. So
right.
Where's Mildred? Justice for Mildred. Did she take a vacation?
Well, considering that Bernice was working late nights.
Yeah,
With some
round the clock,
regularity.
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine they would let Mildred have a vacation. Of course, she does still have her friends at the IRS. And if
That's
you don't
true.
give me a vacation,
Yeah,
I'm going to
I'll
just
give him a call. That's some great leverage.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's get on to the whole purpose of our being here, the episode.
Awesome.
I went with TV Guide listing, which
Okay.
says Laura and Steele slip into the seamier side, get it, seamier side,
Yeah.
of the fashion
Seamier,
world
okay.
on a case involving stolen trade secrets and a vicious sibling rivalry.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun,
It's
dun,
a good
dun.
one. I like it.
Yes. Well, it starts out, we see an older man who we soon find out is Bullets Blaustein, and he's walking through an alleyway full of street vendors, clothing, food, etc. And that is the Santee Alley district.
Yeah, I looked this up.
The fashion district. Yes. And it's a real thing.
Yep.
And what we see there is, as far as I can see from the various photos, that's the way it actually looks. It's just kind of like out there and everybody's got their stuff.
Yeah.
The reviews on TripAdvisor are not necessarily glowing, but yeah, it's there.
Well, obviously there to contrast the fashion mart, which is, of course, high fashion. So
Right.
we've
Which
got the...
actually, I see, we see the building in that first shot down the street from the Santee, but I wasn't able to find it on Google Maps. So I'm sure it's there. Somebody probably can tell us exactly what the building is. I'm guessing it's a hotel, but I wasn't able to find that out because I couldn't find it on the map. Oh, Google Maps, you just frustrate me sometimes.
But
anyway,
at the same time, we have something at our fingertips that can literally zoom in on pretty much most places in the world. So that's pretty impressive.
Yes.
When you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I need to talk to you about that thing that's on your kitchen counter there. The satellite showed it to me. Yes. Anyway.
It's the cat. It was the cat, wasn't it? She sneaks up there when we think when she thinks we're not looking, but we know she's there.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's lots of clothes on the rack, things being wheeled about, street vendors selling food and such. And we see this old guy step up to a hot dog vendor and steal a hot dog.
He's pretty stealthy too. He just nobody even notices it's missing, which is impressive.
Well, I mean, let's face it. I mean, in a hot dog cart, you probably wouldn't notice a hot dog missing, but he does it so casually and carefully that nobody notices that he's doing it.
You get the impression that he probably does this every day. He's well. Yeah, this is his routine. He knows, he's like, okay, there's my hot dog, and I'm not gonna lie, I love me some good street meat, so I can see where he's coming from. You gotta get it.
Yeah, well, up here we have reindeer hot dogs. So anyway, yes.
I once had a curry made out of kangaroo.
Okay.
Yeah.
I once had I don't remember what it was. It was made out of goat. That was good too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as we see this man walk off with his ill-gotten goods, we see another man, a younger man, driving up in a Volkswagen car Magia, which for anybody who's not aware, that's basically just an old Volkswagen Bug that's been redesigned to look like it's fast, but it's not. And he pulls it up and he parks, and he gets out and checks a piece of paper as he looks around. And then we jump inside what's obviously kind of a flea bag clothing store.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of one of those places where you can go where it's just like racks upon racks of either used clothing or stuff that has just been put there all willy-nilly that you can get for cheaper than you would normally get if it's a label brand name, something like that. I don't like those places personally, not because they're seamy, but because I get visually overloaded. And if it's just like all over the place with like little organization, I can't deal with it. And I'm not able to look for anything. So Value Village, can't do it.
Well, next we get, I already said we're inside the store, and Bullets is making his way to the back where they do some either custom sewing, made to order clothes, or they tailor existing clothes that somebody might buy. And so he's eating his hot dog. He makes his way back to that cash register that's back there, and a woman who we find out is called Mitzi is at the counter and tells him somebody named Al Grossman called again, and he's sending Solly over to collect on that 3-year loan. Sounds a bit like a loan shark to me.
It does. It really does.
But at the same time, would a loan shark do a 3-year loan? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anybody that's done business with a loan shark, let us know. I mean, if you're not in hiding anywhere or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah,
anyway,
you wouldn't want to reveal your location.
Anyway, Bullets somewhat indignantly says, well, just call him back. Tell him I've been meaning to surprise him. And Mitzi says, well, money would surprise him. And Bullets, we learn a lot about Bullets right here because he says, well, a few alterations to the checking account, and if here, tucked there in the deposit withdrawal slips, and before the computer digests its mistake, our money will be there to cover it. She says, what money? And he says,
maybe they left Mildred out because she would have sniffed this guy out with her IRS powers immediately, and Bullets would be in jail before the episode got going, you know? She'd find his nip. She'd find his tuck.
Yeah. So she says, what money? And he says, from our new summer line. Mitzi, I've got a feeling it's going to be the greatest season yet. And then the young man from the Carmagia walks in, and Bullets rushes up to greet him, and the young man asks for Bullets, and Bullets, yes, I'm Bullets, formerly the Prince of Pleats.
Okay.
So yeah, he's proud of that title.
Yeah, that is a thing he is proud of. And you're right, we do learn a lot about Bullets here, because in the I don't know what 2 minutes that we've gotten so far of him in this episode, we learn that he's struggling, like his business is not thriving. He owes a ton of money, but also he's extremely positive. Anybody else in this position would potentially be stressed and freaking out, and he just seems to he's like, this is going to be our greatest season yet, and he doesn't seem to kind of want to acknowledge any of the bad. He just wants to focus on the good, and
some
it's
people
charming.
would call it delusional.
It would be, yeah, it is, but it's also kind of charming. It's cute. You can't really be mad at him. He's not, even though you should, you can't. So unless you're Julia.
Yeah. I mean, he's a lovable scuzzball.
Yeah.
Lovable scuzzball. Yeah,
he's
I guess I can
Maury
say that.
Singer a little bit like that.
Yes, exactly. Well,
he's got that charm.
and Maury does come up later in my notes, by the way.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, the young man comes in, and Bullets tries to lead him back to look at some fabrics, because the young man said, hey, I've got a friend that said you can make me a coat. But the young man's not interested in anything that Bullets has. He pulls out a big old hunk of fabric and says he'd like the jacket made out of this material. And Bullets looks at it, and burlap mufflers.
Okay,
he's not impressed.
I need to pause us here for a second, because this has been driving me crazy. Okay.
Okay.
This must be an American-Canadian thing, because anytime I hear the word muffler, I think of something for my car.
Right.
And so I had to Google it, because I was like, what on earth are they? Because it comes up in the Christmas episode
scarf.
Too. Okay, why not just say scarf? Muffler sounds like something for your... It's like it comes up in the Christmas episode too, when he says she's probably gotten us all mufflers. So I Googled, what is the difference between a muffler and a scarf? Because to me, that's all a scarf. Anything that goes around your neck is a scarf. But apparently, according to... Well, okay, fair. Apparently, according to Google, a scarf is made from a smooth silk-like material and can be worn around the neck or draped in an attractive manner. A muffler is made from wool or warm material and is wrapped around the neck to keep a person warm in the winter. This must be a regional thing, because I have never, ever, ever in Canada heard anyone refer to a scarf as a muffler. It's always just a scarf. So I'm thinking that this is an America versus Canada thing, but it's interesting to me that there is supposed to be a difference between muffler and scarf. Because if I hear muffler, again, I think of automobiles. So
yeah,
anyway.
I do tend to as well. I mean, I think muffler for the neck drape, neck decoration, neck warming thing. I think it's an older term that's not commonly used these days.
Yeah, that could be.
I understand the difference in the definition, is
Yeah,
due to the material being used and the primary purpose of it. But yeah, I agree.
Maybe it's just because in Canada, the only thing you're wearing around your neck is to keep you warm. Like, let's face it, we're not walking around in silk, attractively draped scarves in freaking January. We're wearing like wool scarves or mufflers or whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah.
And you as well, since you've had a bit of snow.
I was going to say that, yeah, we've had like 21 inches in this last few days. And I got to admit, I go outside in a t-shirt and just an
you're
overshirt.
That guy. Okay.
Yeah.
There's always one guy. You're that guy. Okay.
Yeah. What can I say? Anyway, so the man hands him the material, which Bullets looks at and is not impressed with. But the young man says he wants a blazer, 42 long, and he pulls out a wad of bills from his pocket and hands Bullets a couple of $100 bills and says he needs it by noon tomorrow. It's a birthday present, you see, for his father. And Bullets kind of looks at him and says, 24 hours doesn't really seem to be like enough time. And the young man
He's not stupid.
buys him some extra time with another $100 bill. And, okay, maybe 24 hours is enough.
It's amazing how that extra money somehow stretches the fabric of time and space.
Absolutely. And after all, who is he to disappoint a customer?
Right, exactly.
So the man gives Bullets his personal information. Mark Prine, 806 Surf Street, Santa Monica, which is a real address in Playa del Rey, although from the street maps view, the actual location is much nicer than what we see. So anyway, next we jump and we see Mark Prine in his green Carmen Ghia pull up in front of his house. He exits the car, begins to walk into the house, but the front door's open. It shouldn't be open. So he starts calling out for Lila. Enters the house, puzzled, continues to call out for Lila. He enters the kitchen, still looking, and then he hears a sound behind him. He turns around and is confronted by a bearded man who begins demanding the claim check for the coat. Prine asks, how does he know about the coat? The man says, it doesn't matter that he knows. He knows. And Prine stupidly asks, oh, did Lila tell you? Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, sure. What you said, yeah. And the bearded man, in a somewhat threatening tone, insists that she said that Prine would be a good sport about it and don't disappoint him, which... yeah, that doesn't sound good. So Prine, realizing the predicament he's in, turns toward the counter, grabs a pot of hot coffee, and tosses the coffee on the bearded man.
So this was a question that I had, because if it were truly hot coffee, it should have burned his face like really severely, and we should have seen that throughout the rest of the episode. So I'm thinking that he came into the house and the coffee was already there. So I'm thinking that the coffee had been sitting there a while.
Well, I will agree with part of you. Part of you?
Which part?
The part that's moving your lips and talking, yes.
That's good, okay. Because my feet cannot be trusted.
Yeah, obviously the coffee was there for a while, but the coffee pot was on. I zoomed in, and the little red light is lit. And there's no timer on it because it's an old-fashioned, it's either on or off coffee pot. So... yeah, that was a question. And the other question is, why did somebody turn it on and then leave the house?
That's odd. That is very odd. You would not.
Yeah.
Unless he made his coffee in the morning, drank it, and there was leftover coffee and forgot it. Which
that's
I guess is.
But then it would be hot, and the bearded man would have been burned. So it's not
very
hot.
Severely. Yeah.
So it's cold. But it's on. So, yeah, very confusing. Anyway, after having the coffee thrown into the man's face, Prine runs or tries to run past the intruder, but the intruder grabs him. They struggle, and in the process, Prine is thrown back against the refrigerator and strikes the back of his head on the top corner of the refrigerator, and then slowly collapses to the floor. Dead.
Is this the longest opening that we've had without Steele and Laura anywhere to be seen? Because it's a good chunk into the episode before they even show up.
Yeah, it is. It's 5.5 minutes before they show up. Over
Wow.
5.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, no, that includes. I'm sorry, that includes the titles and the preview. So it's going to be less than that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a pretty long intro
because I just realized as you were going through it that they don't show up until this next scene. Interesting.
Yeah. And at the next scene is where we're at now. And we are at a meat market. I mean, fashion show. And on the drapes backing the stage and the model's runway is the name Julian Barron, blazing out in bright neon lights.
Yep. Hot pink.
Yeah. I guess that was a thing back then. Hot pink
neon.
It
was actually. It was very, I mean, I was a kid, so, but I do remember, I say this as if I was like a wizened, I was one. I was one here. Back in the day. Anyway, yes. Go ahead.
Anyway, so we see a group of models walk up from behind the stage to the top and then out onto the runway and then back, only to be replaced by another group of models, all to the sound of applause from the audience.
And terrible
And apparently
music.
Slit skirts are all the rage at this time because nearly every long dress in the show is a slit skirt style. In the audience, we see one Remington Steele smoking a cigar, wearing thick-rimmed glasses, who is also applauding vigorously.
He's having a great time.
Oh, yes.
He's living his best life here.
Well, Julian Barron isn't. We see him and he is smoking and pacing and he is nervous as all get out.
Yeah.
And on the stage, yet another group of models appears, and among this new group of models is a long-legged field darter named Laura Holt.
I gotta say,
yes,
that dress looks great on her. She might not enjoy this runway situation, but I think that is a really flattering cut for her.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a high fashion guy, and so in general, these kinds of dresses really don't.
They all look the same.
I can see somebody. I can see somebody wearing them at a very, very fancy party, but
yeah.
Generally speaking, that's not going to appeal to me. But anyway,
well, it's fashion shows. That's kind of what they are. If you watch any and to be fair, I've not watched a ton, but I've seen some. And anytime you see a fashion show, the fashions that the models are debuting are always an exaggerated form of what you're going to actually see in the stores. So that's why you get like the weird stuff in some of the runway shows where people are wearing like paper bags and then they have stuff written on them, or weird designs that are kind of just outrageous. In this case, it's probably like higher end. It's kind of like the art shows where you get like crazy bananas taped to a wall as art, or Pipkins going for tons of money.
Well, and this kind of leads into a question that I had in my mind. I didn't put it on my notes, but I don't get it with fashion shows. I mean, I understand that you're showing off the latest dresses that you're going to be selling to buyers. Okay. But why this obsession by the general public? I use that term kind of loosely because I mean, obviously not everybody in the general public is obsessed with fashion shows, but there is a segment of the general public that has nothing to do with the fashion industry that is obsessed by fashion shows. And first of all, as you said, these dresses are often exaggerated versions. They don't actually represent what's going to be sold. And secondly, what do I care what a size -0 woman is going to be, wearing and looks good on her, because that style dress is not going to look good and flattering on somebody who's got a normal figure.
Well, that's the thing. That's what they're trying to sell you. They're trying to sell you the dream, right? You see these women who, and it's kind of like any type of style that looks good when it comes to fast fashion almost never fits the way that it would, because when you think about it, these models have these clothes tailored to look good on them specifically.
Right.
So you yourself,
basically, they're custom dresses for each
they're
person.
custom dresses, yeah. And so on the rack, no, you're not going to find something that looks good, at least not the same way. You might find clothing that flatters you, obviously, but that model is definitely not going to be representative of what gets sold in the stores because she's had that dress made for her. But it is sort of the lie that the fashion industry sells to women and to men that, you know, you're going to look like this.
Yeah. I'm going to look like Pierce Brosnan if I just buy a tuxedo. My wife might like that, but yeah, she'd have to be really, really blind to think that that's the case. But anyway.
Hey, once I get my eye surgery, if it goes horribly wrong, maybe that's what'll happen.
But, you know, I guess that's one of the problems that the fashion industry would have if they wanted to do it correctly is that you would have to break the body types of men and women down into various groups and then design clothes specifically for that body style group.
You'd have to sell clothes for people.
Yeah, well, but also you'd have to break them down into multiple segments, and you'd have to take the same basic design and redesign it, restructure it for each body type in order for it to look flattering or to look good on that particular body type.
It's getting there, but it also, now with there being so much choice, it becomes really difficult. I went to buy a pair of jeans the other day, and oh my God, there are a gazillion different quote unquote styles and cuts and fits. My husband, I hate him for this. He walks into a store, he picks out his size, he walks out, he doesn't even bloody try it on because he doesn't need to. He knows his length, he knows his waist, and all of the jeans fit him, and I hate him for it because it's just so flippin' easy. Whereas I go into a store and there's short, there's long, there's regular, there's straight leg, there's flare, there's skinny jeans, there's ultra skinny jeans, there's curvy, there's boyfriend, there's mid-rise, high-rise, low-rise. Good God.
To be fair, there are various styles of jeans for men. You've got the regular fit, you've got the slim fit, you've got the relaxed fit, you've got the boot cut, you've got the straight cut. So we, on the male side, we do have a few choices to pick through too. But like Scott, I am the kind of person, okay, I know I want this style jean and I need it in this size. And I go in and I find the ones that I like the price of.
Yeah.
Or, or I know the brand. And I'm comfortable with buying that brand. And I just pick up 2 or 3 of them and I walk them to the register, I plop them down, and
I hate you too. Now I hate you too. Because like when I bought those jeans the other day, I bought 2 pairs, okay? And they scanned the thing and my Scott looks at me and he goes, "That's $100?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's actually pretty cheap. For women's jeans, $100 is pretty good."
Men's jeans are expensive too.
You have pockets, okay? You can get pockets.
Again with the pockets.
You get real functional pockets. Anyway, we should probably get back to
except for that little pocket. Except for that little pocket above the right-hand side,
What is that for?
What is that for?
Does anybody know?
No.
Okay. If anyone knows that's listening that knows what that little pocket is for, please tell us. Put it in the Facebook group or email us or whatever. But somebody let us know what that tiny little pocket within a pocket is for, because it's annoying.
Anyway, so Laura and the other model that she is featured with do their strut. They go back up onto the top of the stage platform and then out through the back. And then we see behind the curtains as the 2 of them step out of the spotlight and into that dark area. And Laura very sardonically comments to the other model that she hopes that they put battle ribbons in their pay envelope.
Yeah.
And the other model asks, is this her first major? And Laura says, well, not exactly, but it may be my last. Yeah. And seemingly tired, Laura leans against the table when suddenly Remington Steele appears.
She knows how to walk a runway, though. Like, she looked like which makes kind of the nonsense of her not knowing how to walk in the My Fair Steele kind of bizarre, because she seems to know what she's doing. She might not like it, but she definitely has she's confident on the runway.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've seen her run in high heels, so I mean she can walk in them. So
yeah.
Anyway,
she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. Anyway, so Steele shows up and he grabs Laura's rear and begins rubbing his hand over it, and in a very much put on accent pretends to be admiring the fabric.
Okay,
saying,
I got two
wonderful
questions here.
texture, a beautiful sheen, so sleek and so touchable.
I got 2 questions here.
Okay.
Question number 1.
Only 2?
Well, okay, more than 2, but this is.
But we'll limit it to 2. Okay, gotcha.
Actually, one's a question, one is a comment. The grabbing her and the prodding her and all that stuff, it's funny at first. It loses its humor after he continues to slap at least 2 other women's butts.
Mm-hmm.
What is with the butt slapping the last 2 episodes? He did that in the episode before, and it's dude, not cool. Not cool. So that's the comment.
Okay.
The question, he's English already. Why with the Leela and the weird, like, he sounds like an Englishman with a head cold, and I don't get it. He already has an English accent. He doesn't need to fake one.
Well, I guess he's trying to come off as being kind of a lowbrow Englishman.
Well, it works.
Yeah.
Well, he could do Johnny Todd. That would, well, I guess that wouldn't make sense for a fashion buyer, but Leela, like, every time he speaks in that horrifically awful accent, I cringe.
I know, it's terrible. So obnoxious. So anyway, Laura spins around and with a very unfriendly and untouchable texture in her voice threatens him and says, "Watch it, Buster."
She looks like she's about to smack him.
Yeah. And then the other model, who we soon learn will be the aforementioned Leela, leans over and warns Laura to take it easy. After all, the buyer's always right, which, of course, is a variation on the old worn-out, misunderstood, and much abused cliche about the customer always being right.
Customer's always a jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, we won't get into that. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, we've already
spend 20 minutes on. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've had a rant. I get a rant. Anyway, continuing his charade, he excuses his behavior by informing her that he's just testing her material. You know, after all, if he's going to buy, he has to know what he's buying.
I think he uses the word merchandise, which is even worse. Well, he says material at first, and then he says merchandise, which is...
Yes. Yeah. Well... Yeah. Anyway, so Laura, having taken off the long black gloves that she'd been wearing, reaches over and drapes the glove around his neck, saying, "This is what you're buying."
Yep.
And Lila warns Laura that this sort of behavior toward a buyer is buying her a short career. Yeah, that...
Kind of like we had it with Scene Stealers, how paying direct reference to sort of the casting couch, or in this case, they call it the meat line. The idea that they have to not only appease these buyers, but flirt with them or pretend to enjoy the inappropriate attention that they are paying to them in order to advance in the modeling world, which is, it's gross.
Yeah. So anyway, several more models show up, and Steele makes a few more appropriately inappropriate comments.
Slapping more butts.
After he suggests that if it were up to him, he'd take all the ladies back to Birmingham and introduce them to the Queen Mum.
Birmingham and the Queen Mum. Wait a minute, no. What? Shit.
Yeah, I don't think the guy from Birmingham would be spending much time to the Queen Mum. But anyway.
Doesn't he say he's also from Marks and Spencer?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of like a mid-range department store, which is, you'd think he'd be going higher.
Anyway, so Leela. Now he's got me doing it.
Lila Call her Doris, it's faster.
Lila attempts to ingratiate herself with Steele, saying that, "Oh, all you chaps from England are so friendly." And he introduces himself as Sam St. Cloud of, as you said, Marks and Spencer. And then swatting her rear, flirtingly tells her to look him up the next time she's on the aisle. Another one of those butt slaps. Laura sarcastically asks if he's forgotten her. And then she drags him away from Lila. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm sorry.
Just go. Anyway. Just do it. It's okay. Just go ahead.
And she's scolding him as she's dragging him through backstage and saying, spare me your pranks. It's enough that I have to slither through that meat line out there. It's demeaning. It's degrading. But she's also undressing down and to her Teddy in front of Steele and everybody else without any apparent sense of being demeaned or degraded.
That is literally in my comments. Laura doesn't seem to have any issues changing in front of Steele or her client, which only goes to show that I saw it as a different thing, that she's focused, she's driven. She's also not ashamed of her body. She's fine with showing it off on her own terms, but doesn't like to be put on display. That's kind of what I got from it. Like she'll change where she needs to. And because we saw that with the motel room and I think the tempered steel where she's trying to entice the client, and so she ends up in her underwear, right? So
running outside,
and in vintage steel too, where she I want you to forget the next 5 minutes of your life, and has that. So she has no issues with people seeing her body. It's just the act of people seeing her body as a means of only her body, right? Not looking at her as a person or as a object to be prodded or poked or butt slapped or whatever it is. In this case, she's just doing her job. She has to change. She might have another, I don't know if she was supposed to go back onto the runway or not, but oftentimes you have to do these quick changes, right? So this seems more to me that this is part of the job and she's totally fine with it, because backstage, she's not an object of desire. It's more about getting the show and doing her job. So
okay. So anyway, Steele, no longer in character, absently comments that he's sure that it is all that as he ogles the blonde that is walking past, and Laura warns him, eyes front, St. Cloud.
He's ogling Laura too when she gets into that Teddy. Yeah. And to be fair, that's, again, not an unattractive Teddy on her.
So as Laura warns him off of the blonde, Julian Barron, who is highly anxious, approaches and starts whining. Are you two on top of things? Yeah. Steele assures him that all is in order, having personally checked the credentials of every buyer there, and realizing that Laura's standing there beside him with only her Teddy on, and he kind of glances down at her. And, and Miss Holt has also done the same with the models. So, yes, he's definitely... He's appreciating scenery.
His exactly, the long-legged field darter.
Yes. Anyway, Julian Barron's paranoia and overwrought imagination will not be satisfied no matter what they say. He insists that nothing they've done is enough, because even as they speak, everyone in the building, all of New York, all of Paris is trying to steal his designs. He's sure that Halston has tried to bribe the sketch artist, convinced that Blass has sent flowers to his cleaning lady, and positive that Valentino has tried to hide hidden cameras in the theater.
Okay, so I have to
get this guy some professional help.
I have to ask, and I find myself wondering this throughout the entire episode.
Okay.
He's clearly he's clearly like a highly sought after designer to have a runway show that is considered to be a major runway show. He's got models walking the runway. They are, when Lila says, is this your first major? There's buyers there. Mm-hmm. So he's clearly in the fashion world made his mark. Is he has he made it as much as he thinks he does? Is he as highly respected as he thinks he is? Because
I think we find out later he isn't.
Yeah, because he thinks that all these Paris, New York, all these people are trying to steal his designs. But are they? Like, is he that high up, or does he just sort of envision himself to be that way?
Well, I think toward the climax of the episode, we find out that he isn't all these things, but in his mind he is.
Yeah, because it does feel like he has some clout in the fashion world, to have all those buyers there, to have that sort of runway show, to be he's got money.
Again, but I think we find out that it's not him.
Well, no. I'm not saying he's the one driving the bus, but his name is out there at least. In some
his name
respect.
is out there attached to dollar bills.
Yeah.
I think the people that are there because they've been induced to be there by other considerations, other factors. by someone behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Not because of his design work. But anyway, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay. So, anyways, like I said, let's get this guy some professional help. He really needs it. He's psychotic. Anyway, Laura tries to succeed in assuring him where Steele has obviously failed.
Yeah.
And she says that the Steele agency is known for its competence, its class. And then she pauses and yells, "Stop that man!" as she points toward Bullets, who has secreted himself behind a rack of dresses, small camera in hand, taking photos of the dresses.
Yep.
But the jig's up. He takes off running, and Laura and Steele pursue. He runs out of the backstage and into the crowd. And as he does, okay, I got a question on this one. He's pointing over his shoulders at Steele, hollering at no one in particular, "Big buyer from New York, unlimited credit." And of course, the men in the crowd begin reaching out to Steele with business cards, slowing him down. Exactly. But
I was confused
if the crowd consists of buyers and people from the fashion media, why would they care that Steele is just another buyer?
I know. That was one of my questions as well. Why that would be? You would think that would be something that would work backstage with the models, but because they'd want to be repped by the buyers and whatnot. But I don't know. And Laura's out there in her teddy. She's running out there after Bullets. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's like that's like somebody running through a store, being chased by somebody, and then they're hollering to the customers, "There's a customer! There's a customer!"
Yeah, lots of money, big wallet.
So what?
Yeah, I don't know. I was confused.
I mean, unless it's a Black Friday sale and that person is grabbing that one thing that's left that somebody else wants, and then they have to be beaten down. Yeah, no, it made no sense to me.
Canada has started doing the Black Friday thing, which is super confusing to me because we don't have Thanksgiving in November. So I know why the stores are doing it. They're doing it to try to keep people from crossing the border to shop on your side of things. But yeah.
Anyway, so then we see outside Bullets is trying to make his escape. Steele's still in pursuit. Laura has stayed back, but Steele is still being slowed down by the crowd that has followed him outside. And as he tries to pursue Bullets through the street fair, he loses track of him. Bullets makes his way back to the shop, but he's unaware that the bearded man is also following him. And Bullets hands a roll of film to Mitzi and tells her to stow it. She slips it beneath the lining of a jacket she's sewing on and then proceeds to stitch up the film.
She's done this before.
The jacket.
She doesn't even question it. She just slips it in and starts. "You want me to double stitch it?" Like, she knows exactly what she's doing.
It's like this guy's entire career at this point, or for a very long time, has been stealing people's designs and doing knockoffs. Yep. But yeah, gets old hand to him. So anyway, the bearded man comes in and hands him a claim check, and Bolt studies it and says, Prine, right? The guy with the turtle shell glasses. And bearded man says, yeah, he asked me to pick it up for him. And Bullets questions him, but, the bearded man kind of trying to intimidate him says, "Is that a problem?" Suggesting that maybe it better not be a problem. The Bullets absolutely assures him, no problem. It's a pleasure. And he just deliberately gives a false description of the jacket, asking, "It's the gabardine with the elbow patches, right?" As a way of kind of confirming his suspicions that all is not on the up and up. Yeah.
Which is really clever when you think about it, because it probably isn't all that unusual for somebody to say, "Hey, could you pick up my coat from the tailor?" or whatever. Mm-hmm. But this is a clever little way of confirming that this guy is not really supposed to be there.
Yeah, because Bullets, he kind of had a feeling that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. But anyway, the bearded man agrees to the false description, and Bullets goes into the back, grabs a garment bag, and pulls out a gabardine jacket with elbow patches, just like he described, which is also not the jacket that they made for Mark Prine. And Mitzi, always trying to look out for Bullets, but probably rarely succeeding,
Yeah.
asks what Mr. Prine is going to say when he finds out he's got the wrong coat. And Bullets tells her, "Work with me, Mitzi. There's a man out there that wants something that doesn't belong to him." And Mitzi sarcastically asks, "That's what I like about you, Bullets. Always thinking about the other fella."
Yeah.
I like Mitzi.
I do too. I do too. She's good.
It's a shame she didn't have more to do in this. Anyway, Bullets brings out the jacket and is bragging to the bearded man when Steele, cigar still in his mouth, still wearing the glasses, comes in and he's stomping and he's pointing and hollering,
He's mad.
"You!"
Me?
And the bearded man thinks Steele's addressing him, but no, Bullets. That's who he's there to confront. The bearded man doesn't seem to know what to do, but Steele grabs the jacket from Bullets, hands it to the man, and as the bearded man slips out, Steele announces himself as being Remington Steele of Remington Steele Investigations, and Bullets is shocked and indignant. A gumshoe? He hired a gumshoe?
I love the way he says that. All right, he wins.
And I like the fact that Steele points out that, given the circumstances, the decision was warranted. And as you said, Bullets seems to admit defeat. He goes back into the office and with one hand takes the garment bag from Mitzi, and at the same time, with his other hand, slips into a dress drawer and grabs a roll of film. And keeping that hand with the film hidden from Steele, he slips his hand back into his own jacket pocket. And then with a false sense of failure, he hands Steele the film and with a despondent, "He wins. He always wins." And Steele, seemingly at least sharp enough to be slightly confused at his rather easy victory, tells Bullets, "Thank you. I'm sure Mr. Barron will be very grateful." And then we get more information on Bullets, who responds with a bitter laugh and then launches into his tirade. "Julian Barron wouldn't be grateful if it jumped up and kicked him where he sits."
I think he said if it bit him where he sits.
Oh,
yeah, which makes it even funnier.
And he walks over and he stands in front of the sign that he's very proud of that reads, "Bullets Blaustein, High Fashion, formerly Prince of Pleats."
Yeah.
He points to the sign, "Pleats, Mr. Steele. 25 years ago, this was my calling card. The original design was Barron's, but the hope, the vision, the dream, that was mine. That filcher stole my dream the day he walked off with those designs. Designs I paid for, sent him through school for, wiped his nose for, and now he begrudges me a lousy roll of film."
When you say it that way.
And he spits at Steele's feet. He's not happy.
No,
anyway,
he is not.
Steele cautiously states that one gets the distinct impression that there's more between Bullets and Mr. Barron than mere acquaintances. And in a final fit of anger, Bullets shouts, "Bite your tongue, Mr. Steele." And then quietly and intensely and coldly, he states that they were brothers, nothing more.
He gives a good performance here.
Oh, yeah.
Like this
guy's great. He is good.
He goes from comical to sympathetic in a way that is really well done. That doesn't feel forced when he says we were brothers, nothing more. Because like the whole Julian wouldn't know grateful if it bit him where he sits. Like that's funny. Mm-hmm. And you can see that he genuinely, that anger is real. And then when he turns into that we were brothers, nothing more, like Steele is affected by this. And it could be potentially because when he sees family who don't appreciate each other, who are estranged, that impacts him because of his own background. But he
which
can
we saw
also,
before.
With the sisters and this one is, he feels sad for him. You can tell it. You can see it on his face, which is
Well, I think he's also a little bit confused about
why one has an accent, the other doesn't.
The venom.
Yes.
It's because it's very clearly there is a huge, huge issue here between these brothers.
Yeah.
To say that, no, we were only brothers, nothing more.
Just family. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
ouch.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, so we have a time jump, and we are in Steele's office. And on the screen, almost filling the entire screen, we see a photo of nothing being held up in front of the camera. It's a photo that is completely black.
Whoops.
And Julian Barron, who's holding the photo, sarcastically begins expounding on the artistic qualities of the photo. Notice the subtle symmetry, the artist's skillful use of subterfuge.
Yeah.
And Julian hands the photo to his assistant, Francois, who ponders the mystery of unexposed film.
Okay. I have to ask.
Okay.
They're gay. They're a couple.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know about
That's
the second
subtext.
half. I don't know if they're a couple, but certainly they're business partners. But yeah, they're both.
I 100% got, for me anyway, and you may not have read it this way, but I, throughout the entire episode, read this as the reason why he's so fiercely loyal to Francois and why he overlooks everything that eventually he finds out Francois has done, and the way that they react to each other, like the way Francois sort of touches him or steps in for him. Like, yes, he has his own interests because he's the bad guy, but like, they're together. At least that's how I read this whole episode, that this is his not just his business partner, but his partner, which is why he's so profoundly shocked when he finds out there's more to him than he thought. And it's all subtext. And I mean, again, somebody else might not read it this way, but like, it's really skillfully done as subtext, in my opinion, because it's through the roof. Just the way that they move together, the way that they sort of interact with one another. I don't know. I
definitely read them as both being gay. My take on it was that it wasn't so much that they were a romantic couple, but Machiavellian couple. We'll get into it at the end of the episode, but it's more like Francois was controlling Julian simply because as a power move that pleased him. He got his jollies out of being manipulative, and that it wasn't necessarily a physical relationship between the two. But I mean, I don't
doubt you're right about that. I just think they play it as on Julian's part, that I think that, again, other people might not see it the same way, but like I see it as them. They are a couple, and that's how he controls Julian. That's how he manipulates Julian.
I'm not discounting your theory. I just didn't read it that way as the primary element of the relationship. My view was that the primary element of the relationship was that it was a Machiavellian relationship, with Francois being in charge and the manipulator, and possibly using Julian's homosexuality as one of the means of controlling him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but anyway, so yes, they're pondering the mystery of unexposed film. Francois hands the print to Laura, and she hands the print to Steele, and she's trying to assure the gentleman that yes, there is an explanation. And then, of course, we see a pile of similarly black imaged photos piled on the desk. And Julian says, yeah, there's an explanation. Mr. Steele was schnorred.
Which is how you can see that they are related, because to my knowledge, and I didn't look this up, so if I'm wrong, I apologize, but schnorred, I think, is a Jewish term, and Blaustein, a Jewish name, and Bullets very much has more of the qualities that would associate with a character. He uses more of the terms like chutzpah and things like that. So this is sort of like Julian he's changed his accent. He's changed the way he moves. He's changed the way he speaks. He's changed everything about himself to appeal to a different subsection of of society, high society, whatever you want to call it. But he uses schnorr. He's been schnorred.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get there, but I'll get there.
Sorry.
Not a problem. Oh, no. But Steele doesn't recognize the term, and he asks, is it a technical term? And Francois gives a kind of false explanation. He says it means finagled, to rob Peter, but not quite pay Paul.
Yeah.
Now, a schnorrer is a term of reproach for a Jewish beggar having some pretensions of respectability. In contrast to the ordinary house-to-house beggar, whose business is known and easily recognized, the schnorrer assumes a gentlemanly appearance, disguises his purpose, gives evasive reasons for asking for assistance, and is not satisfied with small favors, being indeed quite indignant when they are offered.
Okay.
And so it's definitely according to the Jewish Encyclopedia, it is a Judeo-German term.
I'm going to admit that I did try to look it up, but could not figure out how to spell it and gave up quite quickly.
I had to go to the script to find it. Yes.
I should have done that because I kept typing in different variations of it and nothing was coming up. So
yeah, but yeah, it's definitely yes, yeah, definitely. Mind fart here. Yeah, what you said.
Like a Jewish slang term sort of thing.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So Yiddish. Yeah.
Yiddish. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah. So anyway, Steele admits that, yes, with some embarrassment, the man did schnorrer him, giving him some cock and bull story about Julian Barron being his long-lost brother. And rabbit hole, I looked up cock and bull story.
Okay. What ended up on your search history is what I would like to know. Because does your wife know?
Yeah. So it's according to the U.S. Dictionary, the expression has an intriguing origin stemming from the 17th century. It is believed to be associated with two inns in England, the Cock and the Bull, both located on the main road between London and Birmingham. Interesting. Travelers and coachmen would often stop at these inns, engaging in exaggerated tales and stories to pass the time.
Interesting. Okay.
So, anyway, so Julian indignantly responds that Bullets, yes, is my brother, and that's what worries him. He says, by tomorrow morning, 600 illegal aliens slaving by candlelight will have converted my $7,000 originals into $7 rags. The women in Beverly Hills to whom I sell will be viewing my greatest creations on the backs of their hired help.
So this is where I think that he is at least serving some higher class segment of the population, because if his clothing is going for $7,000 and it's being worn by women in Beverly Hills, he's not small time. He's at least, he might not be sought after by everyone in Paris and New York, but he's definitely not.
He's got some clientele.
Yeah, he's got. Yeah,
I had a problem with the whole idea of, my hired help is wearing a nice dress.
Yeah, this concept that poor people don't deserve nice things really ticks me off, because it implies that you only deserve something high quality if you've got money, and I don't like that. He does not come across well here.
No, he doesn't come across well anywhere. What are you talking about?
Well, and that's the thing. Bullets comes across initially as the more sympathetic character, but I do think that there is something to be sympathized about Julian as we learn going forward. This first moment here is where I sort of, my theory of him and Francois, because Francois grabs his arm and he says, "Don't upset yourself." And I genuinely think that that's more of an intimate gesture than it is necessarily something that a business partner would do. And I part of me kind of wonders, I mean, Julian being a gay fashion designer, that's an obvious stereotype. And I think how they managed to skirt the moral gray area, because standards and practices would not love an openly gay couple that are openly gay in a show, in a lot of shows, especially at this time period. That maybe it's because they're that he's the villain that they kind of skirt that moral gray area. You can have a wacky gay sidekick that's your assistant, or you can have them, but there's a concept in queer theory and queer cinema and film that is, you bury your gays. They're either bad guys or they die. Those are the two things that get to happen. And obviously that's not the case anymore, but it would have been the case back then. So,
well, as Doris said, a couple is one of each sex, at least on screen.
At least on screen. So I definitely get the opinion. This just feels very intimate when he sort of says, "Don't
Okay.
upset yourself," and then he kind of steps in and defends him. And I don't doubt what you said either, that Francois is a narcissist and probably a psychopath, and he's manipulating Julian emotionally, but I think also probably physically. Like, it's easier to control someone if that person is not only indebted to you in a business sense, but also emotionally.
Yeah. Or emotionally dependent upon you. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So anyway, after trying to calm down Julian, as you pointed out, Francois explains that in the world of fashion, world travels fast. Word of success, word of failure. And of course, he would just hate to think what other potential clients in the market would say if the Remington Steele agency failed to retrieve that film. And as Steele shoves a pile of photos into an otherwise empty desk drawer,
no
Francois
pencils. Still no pencils.
No, nothing.
Nothing. Yeah,
Francois,
there's never anything in that drawer.
Francois, with mock sympathy, tells Steele that gossip can be so destructive.
Ugh.
Yeah.
What a jerk. He's just a
what
jerk.
What a sleazeball.
Yeah, he is. He's sleazier than Bullets in a sense that, like, Bullets.
That's not even a question.
Bullets is kind of like, quote unquote, sleazy in the way that he grabs a hot dog from a vendor and he manipulates their books a little bit to kind of get out of paying his debts and all of these things, but he's charming as he does it, whereas Francois is just gross.
Yeah. So next we jump to Bullet's fashion outlet, and Steele, accompanied by Laura, is spitting Bullets, demanding that Bullets show himself.
Good stuff. I like that.
But Bullets is not completely in a position to show himself. He's pulling himself up from the floor. When Steele and Laura confront him, he says that someone hit him on the head from behind. Laura seems somewhat sympathetic, but Steele, no, he's not having any
mad.
of it. He's convinced that
he's mad. He doesn't like being played, and he
thinks he's being played again.
Yeah.
And so he demands to have the film and announces that they aren't leaving until they have every last roll. And Bullets points to the plaid garment bag hanging nearby, admitting that, Mitzi sewed it into the lining of the blazer for safekeeping. But the bag is empty. And Bullets, I love this, he indignantly begins shouting, "Thieves! Gunnish! They stole my season!"
Never mind that you stole it first.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And by the way, Gunniff is the Yiddish term for a thief or dishonest person or scoundrel, often used as a general term of abuse.
We need a glossary for this episode. We need like a Yiddish glossary for this episode, because
it is. I mean, throughout the entire episode, it's great. I love it.
It's great. No, it's fantastic. Bullets is such a wonderfully colorful
character,
natural, sympathetic. They seem to always know, almost without fail, with few exceptions, how to pick their guest stars perfectly. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those examples.
Yeah, and none of this comes off as contrived. I mean,
no.
And a lot of that has to do with the actor. It all comes off wonderfully natural, as if, I'm hearing this dialogue and I'm just writing it down.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, that's perfect. I don't know how else to say it.
So anyway, next we see that Steele, Laura, and Bullets are getting out of the limousine in front of the home of Mark Prine. Same home we saw earlier. And Laura warns Bullets that, hey, if this is another one of your tap dances. And Bullets is offended and asks, "Miss Holt, you've known me for almost an hour. You still don't trust me?" I would have thought she would have said, "I've known you for almost an hour, which is why I don't trust you."
Yeah. It's cute, though, that's his, you've known me for almost an hour.
So Steele comments that the house hardly looks the part of a home for a man who traffics in high fashion espionage. And with no answer coming in response to their knock on the door, the trio enters the home uninvited and begins looking around. Laura goes into the bedroom to check. Bullets heads into the kitchen and Steele into a separate dining area. In the bedroom, Laura finds a photo of Lila with
Leela.
the inscription, Leela, yes, with the inscription, to Mark, all my love, Lila. Steele finds his work ID, which indicates that Mark Prine works for a company called Overdyne. And Laura, who's joined Steele back into the dining room, hands him the photo and supplies that Overdyne is a tech company, one of many that helped NASA get men to that old devil moon, which is a lyric and a title from a song made famous by Frank Sinatra from his 1956 album, Songs for Swingin' Lovers.
Interesting.
Which leads Steele to wonder what bites and ROMs have to do with the latest hemlines.
Good point.
Laura shows Steele the photo. He comments that the line to the hemlines is growing clearer. Laura adds that there's no one better than a model to infiltrate a showroom, and she speaks from bitter experience.
Yeah.
How long have they been on this case?
I was gonna say,
I can't imagine.
This one is this is a bit of a kind of a funny line coming from her, because I mean, even if they'd been on the case for a week or two, that's not enough for her to be that
bitter.
Yeah, wizened and I just yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure being a fashion model isn't easy, but compared to some of the other stuff that she does on a regular basis.
No kidding. Yeah.
It's got to be easy in comparison.
Dodging bullets and yeah.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively.
So anyway, yeah. In the kitchen, Bullets is helping himself to some groceries from the counter, stuffing them in his pockets. And as he's looking for more foodstuffs to abscond with, he opens the refrigerator door, but he finds the body of the late Mark Prine stuffed inside. At least this one got some lines before they stuffed him into a box.
Yeah, he was more than a body.
From the dining room, Laura calls out to Bullets, asking if he's finding everything he needs. And the way she says it, it's like she knows he's in there.
Yeah.
It's like she knows he's in there rummaging through the cupboards, grabbing food or something.
She knows. She knows he's up to whatever he's up to. It's not good.
Yes. So Laura and Steele head into the kitchen, and as they enter, Bullets is closing the refrigerator door with a shocked look on his face. He leans with his back to the refrigerator, points over his shoulder, and with a sick tone in his voice says, 40 regular in there. Not very pretty.
Poor guy. He seems really stunned. I mean, and anybody would be if you've never seen a dead body or, well, I can't say I've ever seen a murder victim shoved into a fridge, so I can't.
I saw one last week.
Oh, well, it happens.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. It's just, you just go on. Anyway, Bullets excuses himself, and he looks like he's about to bring up his last meal.
Yeah.
Laura opens the door, and then with a very shocked and disturbed look on her face, quickly slams it shut and takes a moment to kind of calm herself down and opens the door again and checks the body for personal ID. And she's upset to learn that it's Mark Prine. Their best lead so far is dead. Yeah. As Steele examines the remains, he comments that it was a skull fracture that did him in. Bullets is leaning through the opening over the pass-through counter between the kitchen and the dining room, and he's puzzled. Who's the other guy, he wonders. Some Starker comes to me with the Prine kid's claim check. Mitzi had just sewn the film in the lining, so naturally I couldn't give him the right coat. But he returns, pops me up. Naturally. That's Steele's comment. So he returns, bops me on the noggin, and runs off with the blazer. How did he know the film was in the lining? Starker.
I was just going to ask, did you look that up?
A big shot, an arrogant fellow. Yep, I did.
Yep.
Anyway, as he's talking more to himself than anyone else, Steele finds a slip of paper in Mark's jacket pocket, and it's a page from Julian Barron's memo pad, and it reads, Bullets Blaustein, 12 Santee Street, 42 long. Laura suggests that perhaps they're dealing with more than Julian Barron's latest creations. And Bullets says, well, it couldn't have been the blazer. The material was lousy. And they conclude that whoever stole the blazer also stuffed Mark Prine into the icebox. And since whoever it was that did it isn't expecting anyone to find him, they'll just close the door. And as Steele trails off, Laura completes the thought, and with some false enthusiasm, I would say, they will return to the world of sequins and feathers.
Yeah, just a bit of reservation, just the odd reservation.
Snarky, yeah.
She's not
Back
happy.
at the theater, a crowd of models are sitting on the stage and the steps leading up to it, getting kind of a pep talk from Julian. After he concludes, he leaves, and most of the models follow him, which leaves Laura and Lila sitting on the steps of the stage. And Laura begins making conversation, saying that, she thought the streets of L.A. would be paved with rich men, but it seems to be time for a repaving. They laugh, and then Laura continues, saying that, of course, there's that English buyer, St. Claude. I know she picked that name on purpose.
That she did that intentionally. Absolutely.
And Lila says, no, it was Sam from Birmingham. And that there's a lot of bucks to be pressed out of that suit. And then asks how Laura did. I'm not sure what she's asking here, and I'm almost afraid to ask.
I think she's asking whether Laura managed to sleep with St. Cloud.
That's kind of what I was thinking too, but yeah, I didn't want to go there. Anyway, so Laura says, no, it was so-so. I'm not sure what that means in context, but I know that, but I mean,
I'm assuming
in context of the question.
I'm assuming she's just trying to be vague about it, so implying that maybe something happened, but she didn't. I don't know. I'm assuming it's like, I will neither confirm nor deny that this is the thing that happened.
Which pretty much confirms that it happened. Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, Laura asks Lila if she's got someone special, and Lila says that she's what they call a player, and that long relations cramp her style. Then she clarifies, there's one guy, he treats her pretty good, but it's not going anywhere. He's a 28,000-year man with an outside shot at 30.
So,
and Laura, since
she talking about Mark here?
Yes.
Is that okay? I have to make sure, because she's we never really understand where she gets to know Carl from. So I wasn't sure if it was Mark or Carl, but I'm assuming it's Mark.
That was my read of it, yeah. Laura seems to sincerely say that 28 to 30,000 a year guy doesn't sound so bad.
It's not,
especially since in 1983 the median income was 20,000, with the average being 24,000 a year. So
and adjusted for inflation, $28,000 would be like close to $80,000 now.
Yeah,
so I mean, I don't know about you, but here that's good money. I wouldn't turn my nose up.
It's not terrible.
Yeah.
So Lila responds that at Laura's age, nothing sounds bad. She's got time. So if she gets hurt, she's got time to recover and move on. But at Lila's age, you run out of time. So when luck smiles and the brass ring comes up for a second time, you got to grab it and hold on to it with everything you've got.
So
I got a couple of things.
Yeah, maybe it's the same. You go ahead first, because I'm wondering if we had the same notes as usual.
Well, first of all, I looked up the actress, Laura Parker. She was born in October 1938, which made her about 45 at the time of this episode.
Yes.
And how to put this? Okay. She is in the age range of
me.
Women who are referred to by a somewhat well-known, although somewhat indelicate term that indicates a sort of appreciation for women of that age and their desirability as potential partners for horizontal relaxation.
Are we talking about cougars? Are we talking about cougars here?
That wasn't the term I had in mind.
Okay.
But kind of along
we're
those
talking
lines.
about we're talking about, it starts with an M, ends with an F.
Yes.
Okay, all right, yeah, yes. I can be on board with that.
So I mean, she's not, granted, she's not 20. Okay,
well, her character is supposed to be 30 according to the script, which is confusing Because if here's the thing, if she's 30 saying, "Oh, honey, at your age, nothing sounds that bad," Laura's only 26. So what?
Yeah.
The grand old 4 years between them is somehow this giant chasm. It makes more sense if she's if she's 45, if her character's 45, that makes more sense.
Well,
But
keep in mind
still.
also that the script that we have, or the script that I have, is dated almost 2 months before the show actually aired.
So they cast older, but
yes.
And she's not exactly like, I remember somebody had posted about it in the Facebook group, and someone else looked it up. This is how I know that she's 45, because they were surprised that she was 45 and that she didn't seem older, or at least that was some of the comments in the group. I definitely think she looks older. I don't think it was a bad thing. I think she looks her age, but she looks very good for her age.
Yeah, but 45 is not. You're not ready to keel over and die.
No, I hope not, because I'm only 4 years off.
Now, at 46, you're ready. No,
shoot.
But no, but I mean, I would think that she has time. I think the bigger issue here is the next thing that I wanted to go to which is, I think we've got a really good understanding of why she's in a relationship that's not going anywhere, and why she doesn't think that she has much chance left, is because she is seeing guys as sugar daddies, not somebody to have relationships with.
Yeah. She's
because
looking for...
It's about the money for her. It's about somebody paying her way.
I mean, I don't think it's entirely, I don't think she's so cold as to not care about them, but I do think she's definitely looking for, because she describes Mark as a nice guy that treats her well, but doesn't make enough money for her. So there's definitely a paycheck attached to the men that she dates.
That's the veto. That's the veto. You're not making enough money. You're a great guy. I like you. You're sweet. You take care of me, but sorry, override.
She has a specific lifestyle that she wants to lead, and Mark Prine doesn't really.
And somebody better pay for it, not
that
her.
Lifestyle. I don't think she's opposed to paying her way, but I think she wants somebody that makes. I'm getting the impression, given her age, models have a shelf life, at least in terms of how long you work. It's kind of like an athlete, right? You can only work so long, and then you're out, right? And usually when with professional sports and things like that, anything beyond your 40s and you're retired. So I get the impression that maybe she's scared that her number's up. She's not going to be able to work as a model too much longer in an industry entirely focused on looks. So, and she seems desperate. That's why she says to Laura, at your age, you've got time. I think it's not so much that she's this old wizened hag that's about to shrivel up into nothing, but she's seeing her own means of a paycheck evaporating in front of her. She's got nothing to show for it. She doesn't have kids. She's not married. And I don't know that she's necessarily only looking for a paycheck, but that's definitely on her mind, because her own means of making money is starting to go. And
I'll agree that it was probably more of an issue then than it is now. But even then, I think, unlike athletes who can't continue simply because they're physically unable to.
Do it. Yeah.
Even I think back then there was a place for older models, male and female, because you go back. I know this is going back into the old days when I was young. The Sears catalog, you'd see sections of clothing being modeled by older men and older women.
Yeah, but catalog models don't make the same kind of money as high fashion runway models.
Well, yeah, okay, fine, I'll buy that. But it's still, you're still working, you're still making money. You're not completely
true. But if she's got, say, for example, a nice apartment that has a high amount of rent that she has to pay. I know people that have done catalog work when they were kids and stuff like that, and it's sort of a paltry paycheck. You need another day job. Catalog work is not really going to get you, it's not going to pay the bills. So she's definitely looking at a reduction in her income, and I think maybe she's just scared which isn't to say that she's not looking for a sugar daddy. I think you're right about that too, but
she doesn't want to downsize
I don't think
most of us would have to do when our paycheck
yeah, I don't think
up.
she's just as heartless as only wanting to get someone for their money. I think she's just frightened that her means of earning a living is being challenged by time, and that's why she sees Laura as this young, fresh person, and she's not. I don't know.
Okay.
It might be a bit more into Lila, but I think we get like a human side of her as the episode goes on, because she definitely wasn't expecting murder to factor into this.
Oh, no. Anyway, as the conversation winds down, the phone rings, and Lila apparently knows it's for her, because she hollers out to somebody, "That's for me. I'll get it." And before she runs off, Laura says, "Well, I'll see you around." And Lila says, "Well, maybe not. But, if I don't, just remember what I said."
Yeah.
Then we see Lila rush out of a building, and Laura comes out behind her. Lila hails a cab. Laura steps over to the agency limo where Bullets is sitting, stuffing his face.
Yeah.
And it seems that Steele has gone to look for Julian. So he's not there. They can't wait. So Laura hops into the limo and directs the driver, who isn't Fred,
no,
to follow that cab.
Yeah.
And Bullets loves that kind of talk.
Yeah.
Follow that cab.
He enjoys it.
Yes. Well, it seems that Steele has found Julian, and he's shown him the note that he found on Mark's body. And we hear Julian dismissively state, "Me, Julian Barron, a murderer? You must be out of your mind, Mr. Steele. And yes, it's my memo paper." Well, when Steele states, "But you don't recall the handwriting?" He makes the same mistake he's made before. He assumes the answer and then supplies the false answer to the person he's interrogating, giving them a chance to
he's not
agree to the false. Why does he keep doing this? Why? Anyway, Julian takes advantage of the opportunity by truthfully, although misleadingly, saying, "My door is open to every Tom, Dick, and Murray who traipses into the mart. Any one of them could have scribbled that note." Shades of Maury Singer's comment.
Yeah, I was going to say.
"Fooling around with every Tom, Dick, and Murray that comes your way."
I thought of that too. Yeah, it did sound like Maury Singer.
Yep. Steele points out that, a man was murdered, and if his client was involved, he has a right to know. And Julian immediately accuses Bullets of being behind the accusation. When Steele questions why would Bullets do such a thing, I mean, after all, the fact that they're brothers and they had a falling out just because one of them was a trifle ungrateful, and Julian fairly explodes, demanding to know,
does not like that.
No, is that what he told you? I'm sure he told you about how he put me through school too. Well, I paid him back 5 times over for that. Churned out my designs gratis, only to watch him sabotage my reputation by using the cheapest fabrics available. Shortcut after shortcut. Seamstresses who couldn't sew straight. I gave him custody of a world-class talent, and he tried to ruin me. Oh, and while he's ranting,
these two are extreme drama queens, like both of them.
Yeah. In different ways, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But while Julian's ranting, Steele is looking through the jackets hanging on a rack nearby, and it just so happens that one of them is a 42 long.
Yep.
Steele comments now that Bullets schnorrers on Santee Street while his younger brother creates 2 blocks away. Julian responds that what happens between him and his brother is no concern to Mr. Steele. His job is to find the film. Steele steps closer to Julian and, in a low, intense, and almost menacingly voice,
it did sound menacing.
"My job is to find the murderer."
And I really like this because we see now, like, Steele went from being furious at Bullets to feeling bad for him, especially the more he sees from Barron, the more he again identifies with this underdog, this idea of this poor, like he definitely has this sympathy that he has more in common with. It's interesting. Stylistically and socially, he has more in common with Barron than he does with Bullets. They both are in the same
he's
world.
Developed Yeah.
that sophistication, that style, that position.
Mm-hmm.
But Bullets, he seems to have this deep sense of responsibility towards. And it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting idea that they've gone with Steele identifying with Bullets, who is this rundown, down on his luck, always scrounging for food.
Well, in a
character.
way, it kind of parallels Steele's life, though, because that's the kind of life he came up through.
Yeah.
And he evolved into this Julian Barron style character, which is all a facade.
Yes.
As it kind of is with Julian.
That's true.
As you pointed out a few minutes ago.
He's putting on an accent. He's putting on the whole facade is the best word for it. He's putting on for his high-powered clients, his $7,000 originals, his Beverly Hills women that he sells to. It's all an act. Julian Barron is a brand, right? So he has to be that brand. And
so in a way, the brothers actually represent the two parts of Steele.
Yeah, which is really interesting. It's fascinating.
So anyway, we jump to Laura, who has followed Lila to a health food market. And inside, Lila is with the bearded man, who hands her a grocery sack. Inside is Mark Prine's jacket. She begins pawing at the jacket, fretting that this had better be the right jacket or Mark's going to catch up with her. The bearded man nervously suggests that, well, you don't need to worry about Mark. And then asks what she's looking for. Well, Lila doesn't know, but she'll know it when she sees it. The bearded man gently presses for more details, like, didn't the client tell you what you're looking for? But Lila reprimands him, saying that's not his concern. She finds the film canister, removes it from the jacket, concluding that Mark was taking photos at Overdine. The bearded man concludes that Mark was a spy, but Lila cuts off any further speculation by saying the less they know, and maybe the less they think they know, the better it will be for both of them.
Probably true.
True, yes.
Yeah.
Outside, Laura and Bullets are in the limo, observing as Lila now leaves the store and gets into a cab. Laura catches Bullets as he starts to get out of the limo, asking him what he thinks he's doing and where he thinks he's going.
Oh, he's so sweet here.
I know,
so
but
cute.
he's so much in trouble.
I know.
He says, just think of me as your muscle, Miss Holt. Following people in the limousine, you do very well, but at 110 pounds, Sam Spade, you're not.
Oh.
Ooh.
Actually, she doesn't get mad at him for this. She kisses him, and she says, that's sweet, but stay.
I know, but he could have been in so much trouble. You never tell a small dog that they're a small dog.
Yeah, I think she recognizes, though, that Bullets is not trying to be condescending or rude to her. He just genuinely wants to keep her safe. And I think she recognizes it as a sweet gesture rather than a rude one. Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. It's very cute.
Anyway, as you said, she assures him that she can handle it and heads inside the store. And then inside, there's no one in sight, so she begins rummaging around. But after a moment, the bearded man comes out from the back room and immediately turns on the smarmy charm.
Oh, yeah, pretty lady.
Yeah.
No.
Laura says that a friend of hers, Lila from the Mart, sent her over and said to ask for...
Carl?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Laura knows how to use that trick to her advantage.
She does well with this, yeah.
Yeah, so he's Carl. We finally have a name for the beard. And Laura comments that he is his best-known advertisement. And when Carl asks her name, she gives it. And again, we've had this kind of, why isn't she using an alias?
Well, I guess in this case, if she's saying that she knows Lila from the Mart, she doesn't really have a choice if she hasn't used an alias to walk in the fashion show. So she probably should have used an alias.
Exactly.
I was getting there. She probably should have used an alias as a model, but she didn't. So she kind of has to stick with the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should have been using an alias for the whole thing. I mean, after all, Sam from Birmingham was
Leela.
Yeah, Leela. So
she knows Leela from the Mart.
Yeah. So she's picked up a brochure earlier, and so she kind of looks down at it, and then she asks, "Selenium yeast?" Makes a bad joke about how she's always seemed to get a rise out of that.
Did you look up what this is?
Yes. It's a feed additive for livestock, although it's approved for human consumption in the EU and Britain, which I guess means that those governments view their citizens as livestock.
Okay, so here's a weird thing about the EU and Britain too, though, because like one of the main sort of Canadian dishes is poutine, or poutine as it's actually supposed to be pronounced, which is fries with cheese curds and gravy, right? Delicious, super good, yum yum. The cheese curds are not approved in Britain because the fact that they're not pasteurized or something like that. So you can't get cheese curds in Britain, but apparently you can consume selenium yeast, or at least that's what Scott told me. I don't know. Like it's weird, and I don't know. But here's what I couldn't find, because I googled what it was, but I wanted to know like why you would use it, why you would have it in a health food store. Like, what does it do for your body? Because it obviously does something if it's being sold in this health food store. And he even seems confused by it, saying it's your body, baby. Like, I don't.
You assume that it does something useful in your body, but there's a lot of stuff that people sell as
true
health food items that do absolutely nothing for you.
Well, this is the thing. Like, and it's interesting because this points out something that I don't think people realize. Like, and without getting political, like, people rant and rave about the evils of big pharma, and I'm not saying that there isn't evils in medication and that whole industry, but they seem to think that somehow the natural health industry is in some way more morally righteous. And it's funny because nothing, at least in Canada, all of the sort of stuff that you buy in a health store, it's not regulated. It's not like with the FDA or something like that, where it's not regulated. So you could buy something and you just have to trust that what they're telling you is in there is in there. It's an industry like anything else. So it's funny that they're not held to any sort of standard. Like, obviously what they sell you can't kill you. That's pretty much the line, though. Like,
yeah. Well, it's kind of the same in the US, because a lot of the products you'll find in a health food store or nutrition center at your local supermart will say these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA for so it's the same thing as what you're talking about. We're selling you this thing, we're telling you that it's good for this, and there may or may not be some evidence to support our claims, but don't look too closely.
Yeah. So, but I'm curious, because at least they're usually, if you sell something in a health store, you're at least claiming it does something. Whether it does or it doesn't is another thing. But like, I couldn't find out what anybody would buy selenium yeast for in a health store.
The only thing I've found that even suggests any benefit is that selenium yeast provides immune support for horses.
Hey.
So if you're a horse,
I could eat a horse sometimes. Like, I get really hungry, but I'm not a horse. Like, I'm not.
Well, I guess if the horse has that good immune system and you eat the horse, it could help you.
There you go. The funny thing, though, is that even Carl seems confused by her wanting, and I know he's confused by the fact that she asked for a case instead of like a can or whatever, but like, he's like, it's your body, baby. And like,
that's right. Yeah.
Sure, whatever.
Yeah, and I have down here, it gives her a look like she's a bit nuts.
Yeah. It's a funny scene because at this point he's dumb muscle, right? So he's our himbo of the episode. He's not,
and even
not
he's confounded.
He's like, all right, sure, whatever, lady, weirdo.
Yeah, I mean, he's at least smart enough to be confused.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, he steps back into the back room to get her case of selenium yeast. Laura quickly runs behind the counter in search of, oh, look, there's a barrel with a jacket stuffed into it. She grabs it, looks at the label, which reads BB, 42 long. Yep. She starts to head to the door, but here's Carl coming back with the yeast and tosses the jacket out of sight behind the counter near the front door. Laura tells Carl, I think soy protein isolate would be just the ticket for me. I'll take a
for
case.
What? Yeah. Did you look this one up too?
No, I did not.
Okay, so I did. You can so at least with soy protein isolate, I can see why you would have it in a health store. According to what I found, you can use soy protein to help lose weight, boost energy, or build muscle. Soy protein isolate may also help manage your hormone balance, lower your risk of breast cancer, heart disease, and osteoporosis. Protein is important for your overall health and boost development. Soy protein is 90% protein. So that one I can see, at least. I think it's the combo of soy protein isolate along with the selenium yeast that has him extra confused. But at least that one I can understand the benefit behind it.
Well, Carl, again, as you say, he's confused, but okay, fine. He goes back, grabs another case out of the back room.
He doesn't put the first one down, though. This is what kills me. Is he doesn't set it down. He just goes back with the same case in his hand. Like, why not put it?
Yep.
Sorry.
So then he goes back with Carl out of sight. She runs back behind the counter, grabs the coat, begins to head out the door. But here's Carl coming back again with her selenium yeast and soy protein isolate. And so she tosses the jacket down again. And Laura tells Carl, you can't make the wheat germ smoothies without the wheat germ. And Carl, anticipating Laura, says, you'll take a case, right? No, let's make it 2 cases. And again, Carl walks back carrying both cases already.
Doesn't put them down.
Back into the back room. Laura grabs the jacket, runs out the front door, and back toward the limo. And
I looked up wheat germ too.
Okay.
Because I needed to know. I was at this point. I'm like, fine, whatever. I'm looking this up. Wheat
I'm
germ,
on a roll. I can't stop.
I need to know. Wheat germ brings with it a wide range of potential health benefits for those who choose to eat it. At just 45 calories and 1 gram of unsaturated fat, 2 tablespoons serving of wheat germ offers 2 grams of dietary fiber, 10% of the recommended daily value of folate, 8% of your recommended daily value of phosphorus, magnesium, and zinc, 15% of your vitamin E, 10% of your thiamine requirements, whatever that is. So basically, like a bunch of stuff for immune function. Yeah. So I don't know, but I don't know about you. As beneficial as that sounds, anything with the word germ in it, I don't want. I don't want.
Well, of course, as Laura is outside, Carl comes back carrying 4 cases, only to find Laura gone. He steps to the front door, steps out, and sees Laura hop into the limo, sees the limo drive off, and he reads the license plate. My question is, if Laura had to pull the door open to get out, how did Carl manage to do it that quickly, carrying 4 cases?
Yeah, and why hasn't he
out there pretty quick?
Put the darn things down, for God's sake, man. I know you have
He would have had to have opened the door.
Yeah.
So at least he finally did. He finally put him down.
Maybe he's just so dumb he can't do more than one thing at a time. Like it's really hard for him. So he just has to that's my theory anyway.
Who knows? Anyway, back at Laura's loft, Bullets, jacket in hand, is protesting his innocence after a fashion. Yeah. I swear to you, Mr. Steele, the last time I saw that film of stolen fashion designer, I was going to produce knockoff subs. Missy was sewing it into the lining of the coat. I mean, yeah. Your defense is that your stolen film was there. Okay, yeah, right. Well, if Bullets doesn't have it, and Laura doesn't have it, and Steele doesn't have it, and Mark doesn't have it, or what's left of Mark doesn't have it, then who has it? And Laura and Steele both realize at the same time that they have it, whoever they is. Well, back at the health food store, Lila storms in, telling telling Carl that the film's worth bupkis and that it's the blazer that the client wants. Carl starts to tell her, no problem, it's right over here. He goes to the barrel, only it's not there. He begins rummaging around the barrel as if he looks long enough, it'll magically appear.
Yeah, he's not too bright. We know this.
Well, Lila soon joins the Not Albert Einstein Club because she grabs the barrel and dumps out the container and its contents on the floor.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing. And Carl remembers, your friend, she was the only one who was near it. Good-looking brunette, health nut, said she knew you from the mart. Laura, Holt. Well, Lila slowly realizes that she's been had. Laura has been pumping her for information. Next, we see Laura, waist up, stretched out. Appears to be lying on a bed, and we hear Steele's voice saying, "Deeply, Laura, from the heart." Laura sighs and says, "You're very good at this, you know." And we hear Steele respond that it comes naturally with the right person.
Yeah. This is funny. This is funny, right?
And the camera pulls back and we see that he's massaging the bottom of her feet.
Yeah.
That's so kind of him. So sweet.
I mean,
so
it
loving.
depends. It depends, because I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but like my feet are so ticklish, even I can't touch them. So whenever I hear people talk about, they are so, like, whenever I hear people say, "Oh, I love a good foot massage," I can't. Nobody can touch my feet, right? So whenever I see this, I just like immediately, I'm like, how is she allowed? I once had somebody try to like grab my foot. I can't remember. This was in high school. For some reason, we were just goofing off, and like somebody went to grab my foot, and I kicked them. And it was a reflex. I didn't mean to. It was just like, I can't even touch my own feet, much less. So I see these scenes and I'm like, okay, I get that this must be nice for other people, but no one's getting near my feet.
So anyway, as Steele continues, Laura sits up and tells him that if Lila has done something desperate, she could kind of understand it, adding that that meat line at Julian's would drive any woman to distraction. And seeking clarification, Steele asks, "You mean from sore feet?" "No, from sore hearts, sore souls. Man is seen as many things: doer, thinker. Woman, bottom line, flesh." And Laura gets up from the bed and begins to start a sort of slow pacing and continues. "Nobody told you what to be when you grew up. You're a man. You smoke cigars. They used to come by the offices and drove and say, 'Steal away with me, Laura. How's Palm Springs sound, Laura? But handle a case? Better let Mr. Steele handle that, Laura.'" Steele, who is still on bed, tells her, well, thankfully she didn't do that, else they would not both be there and they would both be scrounging for rent. He gets up from the bed, moves to her, wraps his arms around her shoulders. He continues by telling her that no one's ever going to treat her as just flesh. Flesh, yes, but never just flesh.
This is a good scene for a number of reasons. We get this monologue from her, which allows her to empathize with Lila and allows us as the viewers as a proxy to empathize with Lila, because at this point we don't have much about Lila to empathize with the exception of maybe that bit that she said about how she has time and the fact that she is, there's not a lot there. But Laura, she sees something in Lila and she recognizes that her own difficulties and struggles have gone maybe not the same path, but a similar path. And while she's lost in that reverie, he expresses gratitude for what she has done. Right? This is the part of it that I really enjoy, because he says, "Thank God you didn't, or we'd both be scrounging for the rent." He's acknowledging that it's her drive and her ambition that has allowed him to become more stable. Like, he obviously was able to live the jet set life and pull his cons and go from place to place. He wasn't starving anymore, but I think he recognizes that she's given him stability and she's given him a purpose, and he's thanking her, which is really sweet. And then, of course, adding to that I'm not going to see you as just flesh. Like, obviously, I'm attracted to you, which he says, flesh certainly, never just, which is honest, right? Because if he were to stand there and say, well, you're not flesh to me, you're I don't think anybody would buy that, because any relationship is built on some level of physical attraction. So he's acknowledging that two-part of it. Like, yes, you are someone I find attractive, but that's not why I'm with you. At least not the only reason.
Yeah. Well, anyway, after their speeches, they kiss. but they're interrupted by bullets calling to them from the kitchen area
part's
saying
weird.
the caviar was the caviar was going bad.
The fact that Bullets is just sort of like lounging around in her kitchen while she's making out with Steele in her bedroom is a little odd. Like their client's in the house.
But, at a certain point, you just kind of turn it off and forget that
I suppose
it's not a big deal. Like walking around in public in your teddy.
Yeah.
So he said the caviar was going bad, but obviously it wasn't going bad so much that it prevented him from chowing down on it.
Yeah.
So it was just an excuse to chow down on it.
He's helping himself to her kitchen.
Yes.
He's eating throughout this entire episode.
Steele tells him, well, to the conqueror goes the spoils, and Bullets, who now realizes what he's interrupted, tells Steele the same thing. Hey, go for it, buddy. Yeah. So Bullets goes back to the kitchen, continuing to munch on his ill-gotten snack. And with him out of earshot, Steele tells Laura that he can't seem to find the courage to tell Bullets about his brother. Laura sympathizes with him, saying it's because he'd like to see them back together again, which Steele thinks makes him sound like a sentimental fool. But he says he owes Bullets the truth, whatever that leads to.
I think he is a sentimental fool, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having that sentimental side to him. Laura kind of knows it's there. That's why she kind of gives him a little kiss, and yeah.
Well, I think he makes the same mistake a lot of people do, is that they associate two things that are related, but not necessarily dependent upon each other. You can be sentimental without being a sentimental fool, but a lot of people, well, if you're sentimental, then you must be a sentimental fool. They can't separate the degree of, it's either all or nothing. They don't see the degrees there, and I think that's what he's reacting to. But anyway, Steele leaves Laura. He moves down to the kitchen where Bullets is still scrounging, and now he's banging on top of a small portable TV. Yeah. He's still eating though, and he complains that there's not enough color, and Steele reminds him that Honeymooners wasn't made in color. And we find out that it happens to be the only show that he never tires of. As he says, Americana around the kitchen table, Jackie Gleason roaring, amiable Art Carney. Bullets says his Muriel, she was partial to Carney. Something in his eyes, I think. And tells Steele that he'd been married for 31 years. And he pauses at the memory, and then with some sadness, asks Steele, did you ever lose anybody? Steele says, once, a long time ago. Bullets says, I thought so. Your eyes tell you more than you know. Steele points out that Bullets had it worse, having lost twice. But Bullets truthfully tells Steele to save his sympathy, saying that there's once was a time when he could have connected with Julian again. In the beginning, Francoise had come to Bullets with a proposition. If he stopped calling him a slimy monsel, at least in front of Julian, he would have a job for life.
Did you look that word up?
Yes. Momser.
Yeah.
It's associated with a B word. Also a contemptible person, someone thought of as impudent and deceptive.
Okay. I have to wonder, he says he was married for 31 years?
Mm-hmm.
According, again, this could have just changed in casting, but according to the script, his character's 55. Now, it wouldn't be unusual to get married at 25, but that would imply that he just lost her, which he doesn't play it that way. It seems like she's been gone a bit longer, so I kind of wonder if he's supposed to be older.
Well, that or they were just married really young.
Yeah, could be.
As soon as she turned 18, bam, they were down the aisle,
That could be it. Which is, there's some sadness here when he says too, and I think they're setting up, we're not there yet, but Women of Steel, when we get the return of Cassandra Harris, I think they're setting this up. I don't know if that script was written yet, but when he asks Steele, have you ever lost somebody? And he says once, they're leaving that door open for something, at least, because
not sure that they had a plan at this point.
No, yeah, I'm not. I don't know if they did either. Before, but yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, that is definitely a tie-in to that. So anyway, Bullets continues saying that no, he refused Francois' offer. After all, the Prince of Pleats pressing fabric for that bum, Bullets told him off big time. And was it joyous? He felt victorious.
He definitely sounds like, oh boy, did I tell him. Like,
Yeah.
this is a good memory.
Yeah, but it was a Pyrrhic victory because Francois retaliated and broke him. He destroyed 90% of his Jersey business. The New York reps wouldn't even speak to him. Miami dried up. Chicago. Pfft. When Steele asks if he talked to his brother about it, Bullets, a broken man a moment earlier, is filled with indignation. Why should he try to make the first move? After all, wasn't he entitled to the first call? And yeah, Steele tries to calm him and reason with him, saying that whatever's wrong between the two of them, Julian Blaustein is still his brother, and surely there must be some common ground. Bullets declares that even if there was, not even Stanley and Livingston could find it. Then he storms off. He's got some good lines.
Yeah, he really does.
And next we see it's dark in the Mart stage area. Julian is angrily yelling at Francois. Contrary to Steele's earlier assumption, Julian did recognize the handwriting on the memo page. And yes, it was Francois' handwriting. Angry and shocked, Julian starts to walk away from Francois, but Francois calls after him saying, what's the big deal? He tried to send Bullets a little business. And Julian explodes, yelling that it wasn't just a little business. A man was killed over that business. And didn't Francois know that? Francois dismisses the detail as unimportant, irrelevant, snobbishly asking Julian, do I kill? And Julian, starting to realize that he doesn't know the answer to that, admits that he really doesn't know everything about Francois.
And this is, I don't know if it's the performance. It could be that, but this is, again, to me, reinforced that concept of them being emotionally involved, because the way that the actor plays it, when he says, I don't know everything about you, it almost feels like a betrayed lover realizing that they don't know the person that they've been sharing their time with and their life with and their home with or whatever, right? Like, he genuinely seems kind of scared and a little horrified, and there's an emotional betrayal here that to me seems more than just business based. And it's really done, like we talked about Bullets, the actor playing Bullets being a really good actor. The actor who plays Julian does an incredible job too. He brings a lot of nuance to this performance. Yeah.
And there's something else I want to bring up about it here in just a little bit too. But let's go ahead and go through the scene, because Francois asks if he wants to know everything. Well, Julian's standing with his back to Francois and doesn't seem to know how to answer the question. Seems afraid to admit that he both does and doesn't want to know everything.
Yeah.
I mean, after all, if he doesn't know everything, he doesn't know how deep a hole he's in. That's kind of emotionally comforting, I guess, in a way. But if he does know everything, he will know at least how deep of a hole he's in. So he knows what his situation is, but that might be worse than not knowing. So
yeah, it means he's been lied to. He's been manipulated, and it's frightening, I think, to recognize that you have to make that choice. Do I want to know everything, or do I want to stay in the dark?
Yeah. Well, not getting a response from Julian, Francois begins pulling back the proverbial curtain, revealing to Julian just how deeply he is in Francois' grip.
Yeah.
In 1974, the unfortunate line of miniskirts. Who raised the money for the next season? 77, the tailored look nobody wanted. Again, we recovered. Did you ever ask how? Did you ever give it a thought? And the houses, a fortune in houses. The village in Marrakesh. And as he's speaking, Francois is creeping closer to Julian like a lion, quietly stalking and preparing to take down his prey. Then he pounces. He grabs Julian by the arm, spins him around, forcing him to confront Francois face to face, and then fairly shouting finishes with, the chalet in Saint Moritz that you just had to have. Oh, Francois, take care of the details. Don't bother me with your problems. And Julian, half angry, half frightened, yells, "I trusted you." And in
This
the final
sounds like a
tearing away,
lover's. This is a lover's argument.
yeah, I can buy that.
You know, the way he shakes him, the way he says, and the houses, the things you just had to have. That sounds like if we're going to put gender roles to this, Francois would be the male character, and Julian would be the female character. You know, the nice things, the pretty things that you just wanted to be bought. You didn't want to know where they came from, right? And then I trusted you. Like there's. I like it as a queer subtext personally, because it gives Julian a real depth, and it means that it's not just money he was after. Like he genuinely thought this person was somebody he could share his life with, and it kind of makes more sense that he would cut his brother out because he believed so deeply that the person he was with was someone who cared about him.
And probably somebody who told him that his brother was bad for him.
Yes, exactly. Like this
which again is the Machiavellian thing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the next line just pulls that mask completely off when he says, "You still want the problems to go away, don't you?"
Yeah.
And one thing about this scene is the lighting. The
it's
lighting
perfect.
is
it's so
great.
good.
I mean, Julian is starkly lit, totally isolated against a totally black background, which creates this feeling of a frightened isolation and vulnerability. And Francois is starkly lit against the background with hints of cover and concealment, which give kind of a sinister sense of danger. And then combined with the actors, I mean, it vacillates between frightened and isolated and sinister and dangerous. I mean, it's
and he touches him gently when he says, "Do you still want the problems to go away?" Like he's you're right. He's got this manipulation, this hold over him. And he's basically saying, "I will take care of you. I'm here for you. Just don't ask too many questions and I'll make it go away." And yeah.
But there's one final thing that has to be asked about this. How could a line of miniskirts fail?
I was wondering that too. In 1974. I mean, what?
I mean, what guy doesn't like looking at a woman's legs?
Well, especially in the 70s when this was late 60s, early 70s, the height of free love. That was the style. I don't. Yeah. It's a good point.
I mean, that's the critical question of this entire episode. How can a line of miniskirts fail?
Yeah, I agree completely.
Well, next we are in what is probably a deli in the mart, because we see Laura sitting behind a menu for a deli.
Yeah.
And Lila walks past Laura, and Laura is doing a terrible job of being inconspicuous behind that menu.
Well, she's got the fedora on, so
yeah,
that shows that she's sleuthing.
yeah. And of course, Lila knows it's her because she pauses and turns and gives her a look. Then she continues on her way. Laura gets up and does a less than stellar job of being inconspicuous while following her. As Laura walks past Steele, dressed in his Sam from Birmingham outfit and Bullets next to him, she taps Steele on the shoulder. Steele and Bullets get up and follow. Carl is also in the lobby. Lila stops next to Carl, who stands, and Lila says, "That's her, Laura, in the hat, headed this direction." Steele approaches Laura and loudly says, "Ah, halt! What a marvelous surprise!" And then he leans into her and says quietly, "Lila just made you. Laura has news for Steele. That hunk with her? That's Carl." And I like this. Steele looks at Carl and sizes him up. "Hunk? That's a Hulk."
Yeah. And I gotta say, I don't see it. I don't see the hunk.
Well,
survey says
maybe he's the 1980s hunk, you know.
I don't know. The beard does not do a thing for me. It's too beardy. Like a good beard is not. I don't mean, but yours doesn't cover your whole face. It's not like that's not like the only thing that you can see when you look at.
Yeah, but I think though in the 1980s, guys with beards were, full beards like Carl has, were kind of Yeah, I think that was kind of a thing back then. I don't know. I could never grow a beard. I try, every so often I'll try and let it grow out, but I've got this strain of blood in me from somewhere. I don't know where it's from that prevents me from having any kind of a decent facial growth.
My husband's won't get any longer than a certain length either.
It's not that it's not length. It's thin. It's like, no, it's bad.
So you'll never be the hunk that Carl is.
No, I won't be like Carl. No. So anyway, Carl tells Lila that the young one is trouble. Lila says, no, that guy's just a buyer. But Carl says, nope, he's Remington Steele. And so they all start divvying up their targets. Laura claims Carl claims Laura. Lila is going to go work on Steele, and Steele's going to work on Lila. Next, Carl and Laura pretend that running into each other is such a surprise.
Yeah.
With Carl essentially asking her out on a date, although it probably won't be much fun for her.
No.
Lila pretends to be on the phone and acts surprised when Sam from Birmingham walks by.
Yeah, her pretending to be on the phone is really bad. Like, oh yeah, no, tomorrow. Yeah, no, I can. Yeah, I definitely think I can do it. Like, it's not.
Yeah. Overacting there, just a wee
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So Laura and Steele, they do their innocent act, pretending to be surprised, and Steele is getting ready to kiss her hand when Bullets breaks in and grabs her hand and introduces himself as Bernie Fetterman from the Chicago Emporium.
He's right in this. He's right in this. It's great.
Oh, yeah. And then he invites Lila to join him for the evening. And then as Bullets and Lila walk away, Steele begins repeating, Bernie Fetterman, Bernie Fetterman.
Yeah. I gotta say, it's interesting that he didn't even protest when Laura said she'd take Carl and he could take Lila, because when it came to Mr. Dominic in the season premiere, he was very concerned about her safety and almost didn't want her to do it. Whereas in this case, someone's been killed. And we know as the viewers, it's Carl that did it. Now we know it was an accident, but still, like, Carl's
dead.
Carl's a big dude, and Laura's not. 110 pounds, Sam Spade, she ain't, right? So it's interesting that he doesn't even blink. He's just like, yeah, go ahead, go put yourself in a room alone with Carl, and I'll take Leela.
Maybe he wasn't thinking about the Laura and Hulk together as much as he was thinking about the Steele and the Leela together.
I don't think she's his type.
No. But, hey, any port in a storm, I guess. At a swanky restaurant, Steele.
No. Okay. Yeah, let's keep going.
So at a swanky restaurant, Steele, despite some unwelcome help from Bullets, is trying to worm his way into Lila's good graces. And Lila is rather amateurishly playing the role of the flattered ditz when the waiter comes over and asks if they would like some more wine. Bullets jumps in and calls for champagne. Rothschilds. 32 is the year he remembers.
Yeah.
Steele reaches across the table and grabs him by the collar and informs him that his memory just cost him $600. And
also, how old is he supposed to be? If the 32 is the year he remembers, he'd be very old. Very old.
Well, no, he remembers it because he's had it before, and it was really, really good.
Okay, I got the impression he was saying that he remembered from back in the day.
No, I think he just had some somewhere, and he remembered that Rothschild's 32 is really, really good. And does the fact that it costs $600 doesn't really seem to bother him too much.
It's funny watching Steele's expression, though.
Yes. Well, Steele's been spinning a yarn about a supposed job for Lila, and now, after the champagne has been ordered, she asks, okay, where do I sign? And Steele says, well, she already has. And coyly, she says, well, I don't understand. And Steele takes off the glasses, abandons the Birmingham accent.
Thank God.
Excuse me. Abandons the Birmingham accent and tells her, I'm not sure who you're working for, Lila, but you may be in deeper than you think. And she looks at him, shocked. And he says, at the moment, the authorities will show some leniency. And suddenly she's no longer lighthearted. Leniency about what? Steele says, well, why don't we start with Mark Prine's murder and then work our way back from there? And Lila is flabbergasted. And then she's disbelieving and angry. You're lying. You're just trying to shake me. Steele says to believe him. Then perhaps he'll be able to believe her. Meanwhile, Laura is with Carl and they are at his shop. Does he live there too?
I don't know, but it's the worst place to do. Now I realize this isn't a real date, but if it was,
that's a terrible date.
He needs to up his game. Like, that is a pathetic place to take a date. Like, let's go back to my health food store and we can dance among the dumbbells and selenium yeast.
Yeah, and they are dancing, and Carl is getting handsy.
I was going to say, if
Laura
you can call that
nervously...
dancing, he's pawing her.
Well,
I mean, I guess he figures
they dance different ways in different.
I guess he figures if he's gonna try to like figure out what she wants and who she is, he might as well, cop a feel at the same time.
Well, she's obviously not enjoying herself, and she manages to get Carl out of the room by sending him off for some ice for her beer. Family tradition, she says.
Yeah.
While he's gone, she looks through his jacket for the film, but he steps back through the door and spies her searching. He steps back into the other room and then makes a huge show of coming back in as if he hadn't seen what he saw.
Yeah.
He approaches Laura with her iced beer. He trips himself and dumps a lot of it on her and says, oh, sorry about that. You want to go dry up? There's a bathroom over there. Yeah, go ahead and go. And after she leaves to go dry off, Carl goes through her purse and pulls out her driver's license and looks at it. Over at Mark's house, Steele and Bullets are leading Lila to the refrigerator to prove to her that Mark is dead. But when she opens the refrigerator...
Sorry, I thought that was her private investigator's license that he pulled out. Was it her driver's license?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh. But he already knows her name, so that wouldn't prove anything.
No, but it gives him her address.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's right. Okay, good point. Sorry, my brain didn't connect the two for some reason.
Yeah. So they're showing Lila the refrigerator. She opens the refrigerator door, and all that's in there are the ordinary things you might find in a refrigerator.
Too bad.
And
Bullets didn't get a chance to rate it.
Yeah, really. Oh, but now that there's some pot roast in there, man, maybe I'll help.
Although I don't know if I'd want pot roast that had been in a fridge with a dead body.
Well,
we don't know how well it's been cleaned.
As long as you cleaned it out.
Yeah.
Well, Lila's laughing. She thinks it's all a gag, but Bullets and Steele are confounded. And Bullets says, I saw him too. But just in case, Steele checks the freezer. What?
I would really hope they don't find it in there, because that would mean somebody had to get really creative with a chainsaw.
Yeah. Or a cleaver. Yes.
Yeah.
Back at the loft, we see Laura is getting ready for bed, and she is unaware that Carl is outside spying on her through her windows. She picks up the jacket that everybody's been chasing after in order to get the film, they thought. Although now we know that Carl and Lila are after the jacket. She doesn't yet, but she puts the jacket on and kind of takes stock of herself in the mirror, sees how it looks. But then in the mirror, she sees the front door slide open to reveal Carl.
Why didn't she lock her door?
Gun in hand. I don't know. They didn't lock it in the last one either.
No, that's true. That is true. You'd think in their line of work, you'd have several locks on your door. And you'd have windows that people couldn't just drop through.
Yeah, you'd think. But then on the other hand, maybe they've picked so many locks, they broke it through so many windows, they figure, what's the point?
Bother?
Everybody else will do it too.
It's kind of like leaving your car unlocked, because you know that if somebody wants what's in it so badly, at least they're not going to ruin your window to get it.
Yeah. You've given up. Anyway, so she sees Carl, gun in hand. He demands that she give him the jacket, which of course causes Laura to realize that it was never about the film, only the jacket. But Carl isn't interested in discussing the matter with her. He just wants the jacket now. Laura refuses, turns, and runs up the stairs toward the bedroom area.
Is she going for the window? Like, was she trying to? Is there a window there that she could have gotten out? Because
I don't know what she's thinking.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to get out that I can see.
No, I couldn't see any.
And even if there was a window there, she'd have to open it. She's going to be standing there stationary. Great target.
I have to think this was just a matter of staging because
yes.
He had to come in through the door, and
Right.
therefore she needs to be in front of him, and therefore she needs to try to run at least, and she needs to turn her back on him. So it probably was one of those like, yeah, we know it doesn't make any sense, but this is the only way we can do it.
But we've got to make it make sense within the context of the story. So how would we do that? She just panicked and ran. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, anybody
no,
would. You see a gun pointing at you.
Yeah. So anyway, she's running. Carl's shooting, and she's hit in the back. I mean, just dead square in the back.
Yeah.
And she collapses on the stairs that lead up to that bedroom area. Carl runs over to her, planning to remove the jacket from her, but Steele, having heard the shots, rushes in. Carl takes several shots at him and then runs out. After Carl's departure, Steele gets up and goes toward the unmoving figure of Laura.
This is even before we get to this is intense, considering the fact that guns are often used, but not to any real serious degree. Usually the person who fires, at least to them, like obviously we see people get killed, other people get killed, but usually the person who fires at them misses, and we never see any real consequences. But this time she's on the ground and she looks dead, which is intense.
Which is what motivates him into this, where he goes up next to her, he lays down next to her, he kisses her on the temple, and through his tears begins to confess that there were so many things he wanted to tell her, things that he should have told her. He pulls her up, cradling her shoulder and head against his body, at which point Laura groggily apologizes, saying she really hates to interrupt him while she's ahead. And Steele's frozen for a moment, but then he pulls her head to himself and begins frantically kissing her.
Yeah.
Starting to recover her senses, Laura insists that it's all beginning to make sense. Steele insists that nothing makes any sense but the fact that she's alive and well, and Laura?
Why are you alive and well? Can I say a couple of things about this scene?
Sure. Go ahead.
The bit where he's the first part of it is so moving and so well acted and so perfect, right? Him saying so many things I should have told you, so many things I wanted to tell you, like the way he's holding her, it's heartbreaking. And Brosnan does an incredible performance. And then she starts to wake up and it's funny, like her, I hate to interrupt while I'm ahead, is really cute. And he calls her babe. And this has been that's
not in the script that we have.
No, it's not. I checked.
That one word is not in the script that we have.
It almost torpedoes it for me. It doesn't, but like it almost does, because it's so out of character for him. He's never called her babe. He never calls her babe again. It's if it were an endearment he's used in the past, I could see it, but it isn't, and going forward isn't. And the only time we ever hear the word used, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. Like people call each other babe all the time, fine. But the only time we ever hear babe or baby used on this show is when it's being used by men who are like, hey, babe. Like when Carl says to her, it's your body, baby. Like it's always in a condescending, degrading way. And it's never being like, and Steele has never used it. I can't see him ever using it. Like it's also a kind of a more Americanized term. Like you go to the UK, you don't really hear babe as a common endearment. You hear love. Or in Scotland, some doll, hen, believe it or not, those are endearments that like you hear, but not pet is another one. You don't get babe. It's not very common. So it's weird to me, and it takes me out of the scene, and I wish it didn't, because the rest of the scene is pitch perfect emotionally. It's got that levity when she wakes up. He just nails it, every aspect of it. He improvised babe, obviously, and maybe that's some.
Well,
I
it
don't
could have
know.
been in a later version of the script, but I was going
Could
to
have
say
been,
I
yeah.
would be interested in knowing what the shooting script had there, whether that was included in the shooting script or if that was just Brosnan in the moment
Yeah, it could have been.
being natural.
Yeah, and in which case, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not natural for Steele. It's
Right.
It's weird to hear him say
Yeah.
babe to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. The rest of it though is just, and then the nothing makes sense except that you're alive and well. And why are you alive? I'm like, that's perfect. I love that.
Well, Laura begins to rant, saying it's Steele.
Yeah.
And it's the fabric. It's some fabric. Carl and Lila didn't want Julian's film. They wanted the jacket. And that's what Mark was killed for. It's bulletproof, top of the line, light, but stylish.
Yeah, I'm going to argue with the stylish part on that.
I think bullets would argue with it as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
the fabric is lousy.
Yeah, the jacket might be stylish, but the material,
Yeah. No, it looks like something that you'd find curtains made out of.
Yeah.
Like, not even great curtains.
Reminds me so much of a Carol Burnett bit. They were doing a Gone with the Wind bit, and the costumer had the brilliant idea of, I guess in the movie Gone with the Wind, one of the characters makes a dress out of curtain material. Well, in the Carol Burnett version, they had the entire curtain rod over her shoulders with the drapes underneath. It was, anyway.
It definitely isn't something that I would want to wear as a jacket.
Well, certainly not as a real formal jacket, but maybe as kind of just a informal type jacket.
Yeah, I could see it as like a sports blazer, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, it's the jacket. It's bulletproof. It's stylish, light, and Laura thinks that she knows just the man who can tell them all about it. And Steele, wiping the tears from his eyes and trying to recover his composure after his embarrassing outburst, tells Bullets that yes, she's quite a lady. Takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
I think I would only call it embarrassing because she doesn't seem to recognize the level of emotion that he was reduced to. Right? She's so into the fact that she's discovered what they're all chasing that she totally missed the part where he was devastated thinking that she was dead.
Yeah, but I think also he would have been slightly embarrassed just over the fact that he lost control. He's not a person who often loses control. And to just suddenly totally lose control like that.
Yeah.
You know, especially where anybody else would see it, Laura, Bullets, whoever. Yeah, it's one thing to lose control when you're all by yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, when there's somebody else there who knows that you did, and worse, who knows the things that you just revealed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because he's played that close to the chest, very much so throughout the first 2 seasons. And she heard it all. She heard him fall apart. He just, yeah, you're right. He lost control. He poured out everything that he wasn't willing to tell her consciously. And I mean, thankfully she was so wrapped up in the case that she didn't really, I don't even know if she clocked it, right? She does say like, I hate to quit while I'm ahead, but she was all still dazed from being hit. Because obviously, even if you're wearing a bulletproof something, I'm sure it still hurts to get hit with a bullet. Like,
yeah.
So
I would venture to say that you could ask any like law enforcement officer who's been hit while wearing a bulletproof vest that they usually wind up with a really big bruise.
Yeah, it's probably like similar to airbags. Like they protect you in the crash, but they hurt like a what when you're hit with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, an airbag is activated by an explosive charge, a literal explosive charge that is, from what I have been able to figure out, is dangerous. It's a dangerous
that's why
level
kids
of charge
here are not allowed. I don't know what the laws are in the U.S., but
not
in
the
Ontario,
passenger front seat.
Yeah, until the age of 13. Yeah, so that because it could break ribs and do damage.
Yeah. So anyway, next we see that the gang is in a lab, and a man in a white lab coat has been examining the material, and he says he is amazed that the FBI isn't beating down their door.
Yeah.
He tells them that the fabric in question is silicon conductive Kevlar.
Is that a real thing? That's not a real thing, right?
I wasn't able to.
Okay, I couldn't find anything either.
I don't think I found it anywhere. I found some listings for something using that word, but I didn't see anything that seemed to relate to body armor. So
they've obviously just sort of Kevlar. They've taken Kevlar and made Kevlar and kind of hinted that this might be a thing in the fictional world, but doesn't really exist.
Yeah. But he says it's one of the top body armors in the world, lighter than plastic, but has a flex strength greater than forged steel. Steele asks if anyone would kill for it. Get the joke there.
I got it.
Milton, who's the lab tech, we find out his name is Milton, says that, murder, that's not my department. But he does tell them that what they have is a special mutation, something that the Russians would give up vodka to get.
It's like
a superconductor. Yeah. we would give up vodka to get it. Yes. It's a superconductor, virtually free of all resistance. If the formula could be derived from the sample and enough material made to, say, skin an airplane, the plane could absorb any free currents in the sky. Laura, trying to understand, asks if he's really saying that a radar beam striking the Kevlar skin would be gobbled up rather than be bounced back to its source. The text says, not only gobbled up, Binky, but converted and returned with a bang. And of course,
I like how they've got all this info, and the only thing Steele zeroes in on is Binky.
Yeah, Binky.
This is what he's heard, and he's like, all this other stuff: superconductor, airplane, FBI, Russians, vodka, whatever.
Explosions.
Who's Binky? Tell me about Binky. I want to know.
Yeah, Laura said, "Hey, you've got your secrets. I've got mine."
Here's my question. I like this. Like he says all this stuff about the airplane. Mm-hmm. This was not the first place my mind went for a fabric like this. Like I would think this would make more sense that they would want to use it for their army or ground forces, because you wouldn't have to carry all that weight. You could put on something much lighter, and it would like blast it back at your enemies, right? Like I would think that this would be a tool of war. I get that it would be useful on an airplane as well, but I don't know. This just seemed like that was a weird explanation or example to give.
Yeah, and it also creates a problem for me.
Yeah, I figured like you would have more knowledge on this than I would. So,
well, because what he says is that when Laura asks her question about absorbing the energy rather than bouncing it back, he says it would be converted and returned.
Yeah,
with a bang. Returned means back to the point of origin. Okay. And I have a problem with that later on in the closing of this. So I'll remind me to come back to that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do.
So anyway, they make their farewells to Milton, who then leaves them alone. And Bullet says, well, whoever we're after, they're in big, big trouble. Now Steele decides it can't be put off any longer.
Yeah.
They sit Bullets down. Steele shows him the memo note they found on Mark's body. Laura tells him that whoever hired Mark to steal the jacket must have pointed him in Bullets' direction. Steele points out that the jacket's a very clever way of getting fabric out of the country, and that he took the liberty of observing Julian's jacket size. 42 long, I'm afraid. Bullets responds, he's almost sorrowful, but resigned, afraid. Let's fit him for a matching noose. Yeah. I mean, that's cold, kind of.
It is, yeah.
But back at the Mark, Lila's packing up. Looks like she's getting out of there, but Carl shows up, and he's not happy.
No.
I thought we were partners. I want my share of the money. He grabs her clothing bag and starts searching through it, but she's frustrated, upset, and with a little bit of a quiver in her voice, she says, "What money? Without the blazer, there's no money." And she tries to stop him from continuing to tear through her bag, but he angrily shoves her aside. He pulls out her wallet and finds a mere $200. It's money for her bus ticket. Carl grabs Lila hard, not quite on the throat, but close enough that she's got to realize the possibilities.
Yeah. This is a wake-up call for Carl and for Lila. Like, she didn't believe that Mark was dead. She didn't. Yep. She figured they were feeding her a line, and now she's seeing that Carl is violent. He might not have meant to have killed Mark, but he definitely meant to kill Laura. So he's,
and he may not have meant to kill Mark, but he didn't do anything about it when he did.
No, he didn't seem particularly upset about it. It was just like, whoops, okay. Yeah.
And so, he says, "You owe me." He shoves her hard back against the dressing table. And as you say, this is when the truth comes crashing down on Lila. And she's got a look of fear and shock. And Mark is dead, isn't he? I hired you to steal a claim check and you killed him. Carl tells her that they've got more than one death to worry about, referring to Laura, and that he's getting out with his skin intact. And if that means selling her to the cops to do it, that's what he's going to do. Carl leaves Lila and heads out toward the stage area where Laura appears with the jacket draped over her shoulders. And she calls out to him, "Going somewhere?" Carl turns, begins walking slowly toward Laura. He pulls out a gun from the front of his pants. Why? Why would anyone, especially a guy, stick a gun down the front of their pants?
Not a firearms expert by any stretch of the imagination, but it does not take a genius to know that if you've got a thing that shoots off body parts, don't stick it down your pants where there are external body parts.
Yeah, especially body parts that you might be very fond of.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that reminds me of a story. Years and years ago. I think it took place in Vancouver, Washington. There was a story about a guy that woke up in the middle of the night, thought he saw someone at the foot of his bed. Turned out it was his feet.
Oh, no.
Grabbed the gun.
Did he shoot his feet off?
No.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
He probably wished he'd shot his foot off.
Yes. So anyway, he pulls out the gun. Laura dives down using the jacket as protection, turning her back to him.
Yeah.
And Steele jumps Carl. They struggle for a few minutes until Steele gives Carl a knee to a particular spot where guns had previously resided.
Yeah.
And then he punches him, knocking him out.
Shakes his hand. Does the whole ouch, my hand hurts. Little handshake.
Yeah.
Which I always enjoy.
Yeah. Well, then we next see Francois walking down a hallway. And then we see Laura walking down a hallway. And then we see Francois and Laura bump into each other in the hallway. Yep. He asks Laura for an explanation. Hysterical model, thug on the showroom floor. Laura tries to put him off, but he's insistent. No, he wants an answer right now. And his right hand has been in his jacket pocket, which he now raises as if holding a gun that's pointed at her.
Yeah, but there's no gun in there.
I'd like that explanation now. Huh?
There's no gun in there, right? Like...
No.
It would ruin the line of his jacket.
Yes. Which Laura is perceptive enough to know and mentions later on. But, hey, you got to get the bad guy to make a confession, so you go along with him, right? So they begin to walk down the hall. And as they do, we see Remington and Bullets enter Julian's shop. Julian greets Steele, pointing out that it's rather late to be calling. Then he asks Bullets what he's doing there. As Steele is trying to confront Julian, Bullets picks up a large, somewhat heavy roll of material and hits Steele in the head, knocking him out. Bullets angrily tells Julian, "Schmutz! Nitwit! You've got 2 minutes! Run!" Well, Julian's confused. Why should he run? Bullets begins berating his brother. It wasn't enough to sell overpriced dresses. You had to sell state secrets. I knew it would come to this with your fancy clothes and fancy friends. Stay, Baron. What you have done to the name of Blaustein. And
yeah, this is emotional, and I love how it's emotional and funny at the same time. Like,
yeah,
he hits this perfect note of not being a caricature, but also being really funny. Like,
yeah,
schmutz, nitwit, idiot. Like,
yeah. And stay, Baron.
Yeah.
You've ruined the name of Blaustein. That's
yeah,
that's both funny, and like you say, both funny
Yeah.
and
sad because
emotionally sincere.
Yeah, he doesn't want him to. He's saying you can't reclaim your name because you've destroyed it. It no longer has any respect. So,
Well, it won't if you continue. If you go back to using it, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
So, although Julian doesn't really seem to understand the trouble he's in, he does realize that he's in trouble, and he begs Bullets to help him out. And Bullets angrily tells him that he just did help him out. I betrayed the best of men, so forget your top secret, Mr. 42 Long, and run. Julian shakes his head and says, when was I ever a 42 Long?
Yeah, it's really pathetic how he says it, too. Like, almost like pleading.
Yeah. And Bullets, it's like 40 regular. And Julian, overcome with sorrow, asks, has it been so long, Bullets?
Oh, and that's so cute.
Yeah, but, there's a picture dawning in Bullets' mind.
Yeah.
And he says, then who's the 42 Long? And Julian just breaks down.
He crumbles.
He covers his face with his hand. He's crying into it. Bullets isn't going to let him get away with it. He's not going to let him avoid confronting the truth. He says, Julian, this time I'll do more than hide your car keys. This time I'll find the dirtiest prison in this country, and you will call it home.
Yep.
But, such is the hold that Francois has over him that Julian still cannot bring himself to say anything, but he doesn't need to. Bullets has realized who the culprit is. And Bullets runs out of the shop crying, I give out. Oh, violence. A cry for help in an emergency.
Okay. We really do need a glossary.
Julian starts to run after Bullets, but he stops.
I love this line. I love this
I guess
line.
After he's not a man of action, so he doesn't do it. But he does chastise the unconscious Remington Steele, saying, wake up, Mr. Steele. It was only taffeta.
I like that line a lot.
That's a little bit like, okay, it's only taffeta. It's a soft material, but it's a heavy bolted material. It's like, well, how much does 100 pounds of feathers weigh?
Yep, true. Yeah.
It doesn't matter that they're feathers. They still, anyway. Francois is still walking Laura through the halls and still seemingly holding a hidden gun on her. And Laura's commending him on his cleverness. It was the perfect cover. Your job, a respected international businessman traveling to all the fashion centers of the world, Paris, Milan, Hong Kong, for fabrics. And Lila's job was to soften up Mark. Woman's work. Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing.
Yeah. When he demands the jacket, Laura calls his bluff. As you said, she asks, would a man as elegant as you really carry a gun in that pocket? It might ruin the drape of the jacket. She turns to run, but he grabs her by the hair and jerks her back and then begins pulling the jacket off of her. But just as this is happening, Bullets rounds the corner, sees what's happening, puts his head down like a bull and charges.
Yeah.
He knocks over Francois, and then he falls to the floor, and Laura falls on top of him. Francois grabs the jacket, gets up, and runs. Now, Bullets is unconscious. I guess 110-pound woman falling on top of him made him unconscious. Or
well,
maybe
he did also drill into Francois with his head. So
yeah, that's true.
And I mean, he probably relished the entire experience.
Oh yeah. Anyway, he's laying on the ground, unconscious. Laura gets up, chases after Francois. Steele and Julian appears. Julian stays with Bullets, and Steele begins chasing after Laura, and they both are chasing after Francois. Francois comes up to a set of glass doors, which are locked, and Laura and Steele being behind him, he's got nowhere else to run, so he wraps his fist in the jacket, and then hits the glass with his fist to break it. But the doors are wired with an electronic security system, and as predicted by Milton, the electrical energy of the security system is drawn to the fabric with a bang sufficient to kill Francois.
This is actually really brutal for this show. We don't normally see... We see people die, but we don't usually see the violence of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But here's where I have the question, because according to Milton, it directs the energy back
to
the source,
like the
which would have
door blow up or something?
Electrical tape. That electrical tape would have carried the charge back through the system away from the material.
Yeah, you would. It doesn't make sense. You're right.
I'm a little confused about that.
I don't think we're supposed to think too hard about it.
Unless it just bounced it back to the electrical tape locally, and then it just kept, I don't know. But I think that was kind of a weak spot in the story. But other than that, yeah, we'll just hand wave that one.
Yeah.
Next, we're at the office. Laura and Steele are looking through slides.
Does no one use chairs? Does no one use chairs on this show? Why is she laying on the desk? That looks like the most uncomfortable position. She's laying on her side on top of a
because you can't lay on the
desk.
Floor. You can't lay on the floor in the office, so you got to lay on the desk.
Why not? She lays on the floor everywhere else.
Well, I know, but not at the office. I mean, have a little decorum, lady.
So yeah, like drape yourself across the desk. That makes perfect sense.
Sure. I mean, where have you been? I mean, this is perfect etiquette.
It's so odd to me, and it's obviously a visual, like it's done intentionally, and it's done for visual appeal. And to be fair, it looks quite, I don't know what the word is. Classy?
Comely?
Classic? I don't know. Yeah. Of her like laying on the desk while he looks through the pictures. It just is such a weird choice.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they're looking at the slides from the fashion show, and he comments that although Julian's dresses look terrific, he can't find that slender brunette with the knockout legs. As Laura expresses a mock sorrow at missing out on her chance for a Vogue cover.
Oh, yeah, she's pretty downhearted about this, clearly.
Yeah, totally broken up.
Yeah.
The brothers enter bearing gifts. Steele rips the paper off, and inside is a photo of the two brothers together.
Oh, sorry, no, that's Laura. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the two brothers together, probably for the first time in 35 years in a single picture, Steele imagines. And Laura is still working on her package, trying to carefully remove the tape so as not to rip.
I love this detail about her. I love that this fits her character perfectly, and it's just done so. She's just kind of like delicately trying to peel it back, and it makes so much sense because she reuses it, right? But then Steve gets so frustrated by it, he just grabs it from her, rips it off, and she yelps in almost shock, like she's like, "No!" And then she saves the paper. It's just so cute.
Yeah, and then she grabs it back from him and opens it up and pulls out a pleated muffler.
I'm going to go with scarf. But yeah.
Well, Bullets tells her it's my inspiration. And Julian says, my creation. Steele says, my idea.
My idea.
And Laura smiles and repeats Lila's comment from earlier about Sam from Birmingham. Oh, you English chaps, you're all so friendly. And then she wraps the muffler around Steele's face and covers his mouth with it.
Yeah. It's a very cute tag. I like it.
Yes. Shut up.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's one of those things where in a show that is on air now, they probably would have had something at the end where they address Steele's reaction to finding her on the ground. But because this is serialized television and because we're not supposed to advance these characters too far, the will they, won't they would be destroyed if you do that. It's forgotten about, right? But it's a shame because it would have been nice to see some sort of acknowledgement, even if it wasn't, a declaration of love. It would have been nice to see some sort of acknowledgement from Laura saying, "So heard what you said. You might not be ready to talk about it yet, but the door's open. And then maybe that could be kind of where it ends, or I don't know. But I do love this. I love the wrapping paper gets me. I love that.
Well, I'm trying to think. I don't think it was in Remington Steele, but I have seen it in other shows where, and maybe it was one of the episodes, the one with the attorney.
Oh, shoot.
Where
Steel Belted.
Yeah, where one character is they're drunk or they're semi unconscious or whatever, and somebody's making all these declarations, and afterwards the person claims not to know what they said or remember any of it, but then they say something that indicates that they really did hear it all. Yeah, something like that would have been kind of
okay, you're gonna hate me. There's a Buffy episode for that. It's the whole episode, one of the main characters is, stay with me now, possessed by a hyena, like the spirit of a hyena. And in his possession, there is a laughter factor, but they eat a live pig. And then he also attacks Buffy in an attempt to assault her. And at the end of the episode, when the possession has been lifted, he basically says, "Did I do anything else? Anything embarrassing?" And they all just kind of go, "Nah." And then as they walk away, Giles says to Xander, "I've been reading up about this possession and I don't see anything about memory loss afterwards." And Xander's like, "Did you tell them that?" And he's like, "Nope, your secret dies with me." So kind of made me think of that sort of thing, right? Not a hyena possession, but still something was revealed about him that was intimate and, as you said, could be embarrassing when he hadn't intended to lose control like that. So yeah, I didn't expect any acknowledgement of it, so I'm not disappointed by it, but it's one of those, it would have been nice if this were a TV show made now, they would have probably done something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, if it were a TV show made now, they would have taken it so many different directions. And I think, how to say this? I don't have any complaints other than season 5 about how the show progressed.
Oh man, when we get there.
But at the same time, it would have been nice to see what they would have been able to do, what they would have done had the television landscape and the approach to television been then what it is now.
I agree. You don't want to see the show lose the will they won't they to an extent, but it also sacrifices character development at times in order to keep that will they won't they going. And so it would have been nice if they could have found that happy medium where you keep the character development, the characters keep going forward, and they do to an extent. I'm not saying they don't evolve,
right.
but also they're able to draw that out as long as they can without it being ridiculous or season 5. And then,
it's the Sam and Diane thing from Cheers. I never understood that because it was, oh, we can't put them together, so let's come up with some ridiculous excuse.
Yeah. The minute you have to do that, you're
insulting the audience.
I don't agree with this concept that the characters can't get together or people lose interest, because if your writing is good enough, the people will still be interested. You just need to find other challenges for the characters to overcome, and that's doable. You just got to know how to do it. So, overall, this is. Sorry,
I think shows like Bones were able to do that.
Yeah.
I know some people disagree that after the two main characters got together that the show lost something. I don't think it did. But you also had other pairings in that show.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were still interested in Hodgins and Angela. Yeah. Yep. I mean, you were still interested in those two even after they got together.
Yeah. But I would argue that their relationship became more developed as they got together.
Yeah. But before they got together and before Bones and Booth got together, or Seeley and Temperance, if you prefer, they still found obstacles to stretch it out, but the obstacles were, for the most part, not absurd.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They
with
were
that.
the kind of
I
things
agree
that
with
you could say, okay, I can see that really happening.
They fit their characters, and this does
Yes.
with Steele and Laura too. And overall, this episode is probably one of the strongest of season 2. Like, I'm already mentally compiling my list, which will change a million times.
No,
but
we're not
like,
gonna do
yeah,
it
we're
again,
doing that
are
again.
we?
It's happening. It is happening. But this is, aside from like the minorest of blips, the technology maybe not making as much sense, and the use of Babe in that moment that takes me out for at least that little bit. The rest of it is, and Mildred not being there. Sorry, I have to point that out as a negative part of the episode, because anything that lacks Mildred is, but the rest of it is just, it's a really well
good
done
episode.
It's a good episode.
Hilarious.
Very strong
Great
episode.
characters. Good actors. I mean, I'll say the 3 principal guest actors.
Oh, they're all so
fantastic.
Yeah.
Lila is a lesser guest character, but she's still good. I mean, she doesn't come up to the level of the other 3 simply because she's not given as much to work with.
Yeah.
And Mark is
we don't get as much about her
temporary,
background as
and
we do
Carl
with the
is
others.
just kind of a throwaway. But the 3, Francois, Julian, and Bullets, those 3 characters and those 3 actors, amazing.
There's a rich backstory
Hilarious.
there that just elevates the rest of the episode to this degree that it's just, it's really good. And Laura and
the way
Steele,
the characters' backgrounds are presented, it doesn't feel forced in, like, oh, well, we've got to tell you something about this. Okay, well, let's have some pointless exposition. It's exposition, but it's presented well, and it feels natural. It's like, it's not like we're watching a script being given to us. It's like we're watching people that are having a conversation where this information comes out. Yeah,
it's a really fantastic episode.
Yeah.
So I always enjoy it.
Anyway, you got anything else?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Well, then we will mention the website, www.SteeleWatching.com, where you will find show notes. No Amazon link, because we did not have a movie.
We didn't get a movie. Yeah. We got the
That's
Honeymooners. Right. I don't know if you want to link to the Honeymooners.
I can put that in,
no movie reference, though.
If there's a DVD set for them, I don't know if there is, but if there is, I'll put that in. And then you'll have links to other resources, such as
the Facebook page, the Instagram page, the Twitter or X page, as well as the officially unofficial Facebook group, the Steele Watchers Facebook group, where we talk about everything Steele related and have just a generally a good time. So,
so join us, or at least join Sara. I don't do a whole lot there. I'm not really much of a social media person, but she does an adequate,
you were talking about
more than adequate.
The podcast.
Does
I was
a fantastic
like, wait, what?
job. Does a fantastic job of participating in the group for both of us. So, yeah. Next episode, Steele eligible.
Yeah.
Barbecue, anyone?
Yeah. Ooh. Make sure. Okay, wait. We should give everyone a reading assignment before we stop here. Before we sign off here, everyone needs to read.
The Prophet. Oh, come on. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to find that book. I'm not going to read it. I have no interest.
All right, that's it. All you Steele watchers, that's your homework. Read The Prophet and get back to us.
Anyway, all right. Well, if that's it, I guess we'll say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.